Chapter 237. Just using advertising to describe great magician Camilla's decision was far from enough. When Sui announced at the New Flyers press conference that great magician Camilla would be joining the New Flyers Academy of Magic, becoming a special researcher for the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce, all the reporters jumped out of their chairs in shock. When these newspapers spread the news as fast as they could, everyone's first reaction when they saw the news was disbelief. What kind of person was a great magician? How could he work for a company? This had to be a joke. However, when this news was confirmed, everyone was shocked speechless. What kind of concept was a great magician? In this signs that hadn't had a great magician in many years, this was a powerful existence, second only to arch magi. Even in the Kamla Empire and the Malar Empire, great magicians were high-up characters, receiving the respect and admiration of everyone. In a small country like the Lampari Kingdom, because there were no arch-magi, the 5 great magicians represented all the magicians in the Lampari Kingdom. It could be said that any great magician was an important existence in the Lampari Kingdom. Many people even felt that a great magician was on the same level as the king. So when the news of great magician Camilla joining the New Flyer was spread, it immediately created an earthquake in the Lampari Kingdom. Not only were all the magicians in the kingdom paying attention to this matter, everyone in the kingdom couldn't help paying attention to this matter. And in this matter, the other main character, the New Flyer, naturally attracted everyone's attention. Although the New Flyer had already gained a bit of fame in the Lampari Kingdom because of their new magic machines, before this, there weren't many people who knew about the New Flyer. This was because even if most citizens bought Shinfei brand magic machines at home, they wouldn't care what the company that made them was called. But now that this matter had happened, the name New Flyer had spread to every corner of the Lampari Kingdom. Thinking about it, even a great magician was willing to work for the New Flyer. This company must be incredible. If one really calculated it in terms of advertising, with the news of great magician Camilla joining the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, the most direct benefit the Frestec Chamber of Commerce received was that in less than half a month after the news came out, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had received countless orders for various magic machines. As for the household magic machines that were more widely used, the orders added together in this short period of time even surpassed the sales in the past 3 months. Even the magic fan and the magic refrigerator that were clearly out of season, there were also incomparably large orders. It could be said that just because of great magician Camilla's decision, the New Flyer had suddenly earned a shocking profit of over 1 million gold coins in a short period of time. If one wanted to talk about advertising, what kind of advertisement could have such a terrifying effect? Of course, with the output of the New Flyer's factories, it would take quite a bit of time to digest these orders. So strictly speaking, it couldn't be said that the New Flyer had earned such a large profit in such a short period of time. Of course, because of this matter, the New Flyer's fame had spread across the Lampari Kingdom. The people who came to place orders with the New Flyer actually came from the northeast of the kingdom, almost diagonal from Banda City. It was over 700 kilometers away from Phoenix City. The benefits the New Flyer received were not just this. Putting aside these direct benefits, because of great magician Camilla's sudden decision, it attracted the curiosity of all the magicians in the Lampari Kingdom and even the signs. Just what kind of attraction did the New Flyer have? It could actually make a great magician choose to work for them. When great magician Camilla was hired by Sui as the special magic consultant for the New Flyer, this wasn't considered anything special. There were many companies that wanted to give the honorable great magician this title and then use this title to give him all kinds of sponsorships, hoping that he could support them when necessary. Even if the title New Flyer gave great magician Camilla was a bit strange, it was still within a reasonable range. But this was completely different from great magician Camilla joining the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, because like this, great magician Camilla would have an official employment contract with the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. He would become an official employee of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Although there shouldn't be a company that would be arrogant enough to treat a great magician like a subordinate and order him around, for honorable great magician, this was no different from lowering his status. It had to be known, Even if the king of the Lampari kingdom wanted a great magician to help, he had to be polite and show great respect to the great magician. Not to mention a trivial small company. After this news was spread, the magicians of the Lampari kingdom and even the other countries of the signs all rushed to the small Banta city and the new flyer. Everyone wanted to see what kind of charm a new flyer had that could make great magician Camilla make this kind of decision. Among them, there were quite a few magicians that had the same idea. Even a great magician is willing to join this new flyer. It must be very attractive to me. So in the half a month after the press conference, the new flyer received countless magicians. After asking about the benefits and conditions the new flyer gave, there were quite a few magicians that were moved. They expressed their desire to join the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. Even those first-grade and second-grade magicians who weren't strong enough weren't qualified to join the Magic Research Facility. When they heard that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's factory was also recruiting magicians to finish the magic arrays on the magic machines, they all expressed their willingness to join the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's factory. With the low-grade magicians who had joined the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's factories, these magicians knew that even if they did some simple work in the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's factories, they could earn close to or even over 20 gold coins a month. And this income was something that many low-level mages could not even dream of. In just a few breaths of time, the lack of magicians that Su had always been worried about was solved, and there was even a bit of surplus. There were just too many magicians that came to Banta City to inquire about the new flyer. With the current scale of the new flyer, it couldn't take in all these magicians at all. Su even had to seriously consider it before rejecting the requests of some magicians to join the new flyer. For Su, who had always been worried about where to find magicians to work for the new flyer, this really was a very luxurious move. It would have been fine if Su didn't reject it. Because of his rejection, there were many magicians that didn't know much about the new flyer that felt that there was something special about the new flyer. That was why they had the confidence to reject their requests. So they became even more excited. Faced with this situation, Su was very annoyed because he really wanted to take in all these magicians. It wasn't a bad choice to train them as backups. But with the current scale of the new flyer, there was no need for such a large group of magicians. It would be a large burden to raise these magicians for no reason. Moreover, for Su, the quality of the magicians that worked as researchers at the Academy of Magic was more important than quantity. Although there were many magicians that came to join the new flyer, the highest level magician was only a 7th grade magician, who was only a bit stronger than Su. Of the remaining magicians, most of them were 3rd grade and below. Only a small portion of them were 4th grade and above, so they were qualified to join the Academy of Magic. Compared to recruiting 100 4th or 5th grade magicians, Su would rather recruit a powerful magician that could compare to great magician Camilla. Of course, this was clearly an unrealistic fantasy. The reason why great magician Camilla chose to join the new flyer, other than returning to Mildan village and being moved by the changes in the villagers' lives, a large part of the reason was because of the relationship between Steel and Su. Otherwise, with his identity as a great magician, he could just say a single word to join any company and all the companies would line up for him to choose from. So Su gave up this fantasy and began seriously considering how to solve this problem. These magicians had come all the way to a small city like Banta City with great difficulty. If he didn't take this chance to keep them, it would be too much of a pity. So Su held a meeting as the chairman of the Banta City Magic Machine Business Association. He proposed to the other companies in the association, hoping that they could use this chance to recruit these magicians into their companies. The companies that also produced magic machines have been worried about the lack of magicians for a long time. So even if Su didn't say anything, they already wanted to recruit these magicians under them. They thought that these magicians were all here for the new flyer, so it wasn't convenient for them to make a move. But now that Su had expressed his stance, how could these companies still be polite? In less than a month, the magicians that came to Banta City, as long as they were interested in joining a company to study magic machines, they were all absorbed by the large companies. Finally, according to the City Lord's Manor statistics, with the wave of great magician Camilla joining the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Banda City had suddenly gained over 3,000 magicians. Of course, it wasn't all good news. For example, Her Highness 70, who had suddenly come to Banda City, the first thing she said when she saw Sue-E had scared him. Sue-E, you recruited all these magicians. Could it be that you want to use them to rebel? Chapter 238. 70 had a ghost of a smile, and with the seriousness in her eyes, people couldn't tell if she was joking or not. Sue-E quickly said with a smile, Your Highness, you really know how to joke. I am a loyal and law-abiding citizen. How could I think of rebelling? Then again, our company only recruited 300 magicians this time. How could we have the ability to rebel? You think 300 magicians isn't enough? 70 looked at Sue-E. You have to know, even in the kingdom's army, there are only 500 magicians in a single regiment. Moreover, don't forget, your new flyer still has a great magician. Your Highness, you can't wrong me like this. Sue-E quickly said in an aggrieved voice. Our company recruited all these magicians because of work. It isn't related to rebelling at all. Even great magician Camilla is only in charge of researching magic machines for the company. Do you think that I would dare command an old man like him to rebel? Of course you don't dare. 70 shook her head before saying with a sigh, But there are people who think that you dare. Do you know that, because of this matter, there are people who have already said to Royal Father that your new flyer not only recruited all these magicians, you also recruited all these other races, so you must have bad intentions. They hope that Royal Father will be more vigilant towards new flyer and even directly supervise them. Sue-E was stunned as he knit his brows. Aren't these people slandering us too much? Our new flyer is just doing business. We only recruited those other races because of their special abilities. How could we have bad intentions? I think that His Majesty wouldn't believe this nonsense, right? Of course, Royal Father won't listen to this. But this means that as your new flyer's fame increases, there are people who have noticed you and want to do something to you. I hope that you can be more vigilant in the future and not leave too many weaknesses for others to use against you. For example, your factory has recruited another 300 elves, but you haven't submitted their application for labor permits to the kingdom's parliament. That could be considered proof that you're up to no good. Sue-E slapped his head and chuckled. I've been so busy recently that I forgot about it. How about this? I'll compile a list of names in the next 2 days and then apply for work permits for them. I guarantee that your Highness won't have to worry about us anymore. Of course I'm worried. 70 gave a sigh and shook her head. She took out a document from her bag for Sue-E. I've already submitted the application for you. You just need to fill in the name list, and I'll fill in their names. Sue-E took the application and glanced at it. He found that all the procedures were actually very complete. All that was missing was a name list. Sue-E couldn't help saying with an emotional sigh, Your Highness, you really are taking care of me. I really don't know how to express my gratitude to you. You don't need to express yourself. You just need to do what you and the Frestec Chamber of Commerce are doing in Banda City. 70 said with a smile. 70 said with a smile, I've heard that great magician Camilla joined your new flyer because he found that the things your new flyer did could improve the lives of the people of Banda City. This is the same for me. So as long as you and new flyer can keep doing this, I will always support you. Sue-E gave a shrug. Since everyone can see that the things our new flyer and I do are good for everyone, why would there be people who are maliciously slandering us? Because these benefits are unrelated to them, and because their positions are different from yours. 70 gave a vague reply and didn't keep explaining. She waved her hand at Sue-E and brought Sue-E to another hidden room in the City Lord's manor where they met. There were 2 people sitting in the room. When they saw 70 come in, they immediately stood up and gave 70 a bow. Sue-E looked over the 2 of them and found that the thinner of the 2 had a strong aura around him. He stood there with a straight back and didn't look around, so he could tell with a single glance that he was from the army. The other middle-aged man with a medium build had a friendly smile on his face. He looked very amiable, just like an ordinary businessman. Let me introduce you. This is New Flyer's chairman, Sue-E. 70 pointed at Sue-E and introduced him to the 2 of them. Chairman Sue, I've long heard of your name. Finally meeting you in person today, it really makes me feel very honored. The middle-aged man who looked like a merchant reached out his hand to grab Su Yi's right hand, looking very close. Let me introduce myself. I'm Major Mac Conley from the Kingdom's Military's Logistics Department. My main job is to help the Kingdom's soldiers manage the logistics. In other words, I help our brothers buy clothes, food, and so on. Anyway, it's just a menial job. So he put his other hand on and shook Major Mac Conley's hand, revealing a warm smile. Speaking of this, everyone is the same. I am the chairman, so I'm just responsible for the odd jobs of the company's employees. Major Mac Conley laughed. That's great. Chairman Su and I will definitely have many things to talk about. Su smiled. He thought that this Major Mac Conley was being humble, but the Army Logistics Department was the most profitable place in the Kingdom's army. For this Major Mac Conley to be in charge of the Logistics Department, not mentioning his own abilities, he definitely had a deep background. After these thoughts flashed in his mind, Su looked at the other person. That person looked to be around 40 years old. Seeing Su look over, he didn't say anything. He just gave a slight nod to Su and said without any expression, "I am Sahas." Seeing that Saha's personality was completely different from Major Mac Conley's, Su didn't say anything else. He just nodded with a smile and said, "I'm very happy to meet you." Seeing that the three of them were familiar with each other, 70 had everyone sit down before directly saying, "Chairman Su, me, Major Mac Conley, and Major Sahas have come to find you this time to ask you about the weapon factory. We hope that you can cooperate with us." "That's easy." Su nodded before looking at Major Mac Conley. Based on the expressions of the three of them, the one asking this question should be the head of the Army Logistics Department. As expected, Mac Conley gave a soft cough and adjusted his expression. He took back his smile and asked Su, "Chairman Su, I have some good news for you first. The Army Headquarters weapon factory has been finished, and we're only lacking the magic production machines before we can start using it. I want to ask, when is your new flyer planning to deliver the magic production machines for producing armors and weapons?" Actually, after discussing the weapon factory with Her Highness last time, our company has been secretly producing the magic production machines. Now we've finished enough magic production machines for 2 production lines, so we can deliver them at any time. So, he replied. Matt Conley and Sahas looked at each other before revealing looks of joy. Then Chairman Su, according to the contract you signed with Her Highness, other than providing the production magic machines, your Frestec Chamber of Commerce must also provide the corresponding technical personnel to help the Army Headquarters understand how to use these production magic machines and the various specifications. Have you prepared these technical personnel? Matt Conley asked. There's no problem with this. I've chosen the corresponding technical personnel from the 100 slaves under my name because of their identities, so they won't leak any secrets. Of course, to be cautious, I propose that we give these slaves to Her Highness and let Her Highness control them. I believe that this will make it easier for the Army Headquarters to control them. So, he said. 70, Matt Conley, and Sahas were all a bit surprised. Matt Conley couldn't help giving a cough. Actually, he had already told 70 last time that the technical personnel would be chosen from the slaves under him. When negotiating with this time, Matt Conley was planning on raising this condition on behalf of the Army Headquarters, but he never thought that would take the initiative to raise it. Chairman Su, I have to say, you really are wise. Matt Conley praised before turning to ask 70. Your Highness, what do you think? 70 took a deep look at before nodding. All right, we'll do as Chairman Su says and transfer these slaves to me. But Chairman Su, according to my understanding of you, you wouldn't give these slaves to me for no reason, right? Su laughed. Your Highness really does understand me well. Indeed, these slaves are not only my precious personal property, they are also important technical personnel for our company. If we suddenly lose them, whether it is me or our company, it will be a large loss. If Her Highness and the Army Headquarters don't give me some compensation, it wouldn't make sense. Matt Conley laughed. Chairman Su is right. There is no free lunch in this world. Since Chairman Su has paid the price, you have the right to raise conditions. Chairman Su, please state your conditions. As long as it's not too excessive. With Her Highness here, she can definitely agree to your conditions. 70 didn't say anything. She just gave a slight nod to show her agreement. Sui looked at the nervous 3 and said with a smile, "Relax, of course I won't raise conditions that are too excessive. This condition is very simple. In the future, in the territory controlled by the royal army in the Sac Kingdom, all the minerals will be mined by our new flyer." The expressions of the 3 changed at the same time. 70 didn't even think as she blurted out, "That is impossible." Chapter 239. 70 had come to Bana City many times in a year, but other than the first time, she would only stay for a few days before leaving. This time wasn't an exception. After discussing with Sui for 3 days with Matt Conley, Sahas, and 70 left Banta City with the 2 of them. This discussion didn't have an official result, because although 70 didn't reject Sui's conditions, she didn't agree to them either. But Sui was very magnanimous. Even if 70 didn't agree to his conditions, he promised 70 that the new flyer would fulfill their agreement and deliver the magic machines needed by the military headquarters. At the same time, he had prepared the contract for the slaves the day before 70's group left and signed the transfer agreement with 70 on the spot. Since the day the contract was signed, the slaves that would be sent to work in a military factory could be considered 70's private property. Sui's method was so straightforward that it made 70 and Matt Conley a bit embarrassed. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't agree to Sui's conditions, 70 and Matt Conley wouldn't have hesitated to sign the contract at all. Actually, whether it was 70 or Matt Conley, they didn't know that Sui didn't expect them to agree to this condition at all. According to Sui's understanding, not only was all the iron mines in the Lampari Kingdom controlled by the Joel family, according to the agreement between the first king and the Joel family, even if the army expanded the Lampari Kingdom's territory in the future, the territory they conquered would still be part of the kingdom's territory and the iron mines would still be part of the agreement. So even if 70 and Matt Conley wanted to agree to Sui's conditions, they couldn't avoid the mountain that was the Joel family. But Sui deliberately raised these conditions that he knew they couldn't agree to, so he was just asking for a sky-high price. 70 and Matt Conley didn't agree to Sui's conditions because Sui's conditions included iron mines, so they had to face the obstruction of the Joel family. But Sui's conditions were all minerals, and these minerals weren't just iron mines, they also included non-ferrous metals. Although the Joel family controlled all the iron mines in the Lampari Kingdom and controlled all the copper mines with the tacit agreement of the previous kings, the non-ferrous metals weren't important in the signs, so naturally the Joel family didn't care about them. If Sui wanted the rights to mine and control the non-ferrous metal veins, there wouldn't be that much resistance. Of course, if he wanted to mine in the Lampuri Kingdom, under the eyes of the Joel family, he would meet various difficulties. So even if Sui had the various or distribution maps from the 5 dwarves, his first target was the non-ferrous metal vein on the Black Rice Wasteland. As for his second goal, he simply placed it outside the country. Actually, the Lampari Kingdom and the Sac Kingdom had been in constant disputes on the northern border. The territories controlled by both sides advanced and retreated, but after all these years, there wasn't a single side that could control an area for a long time, not to mention turning the other side's territory into their own. So when Sui proposed this condition, 70's group of 3 carefully considered it and found that it was no different from empty talk. So the 3 of them strongly opposed Sui's proposal at first, but they said that they could continue discussing it, but they needed to go back and carefully study it before making a decision. This result was within Sui's expectations. It could be considered the result that he had already planned. His goal wasn't to achieve his final goal this time. Rather, he hoped that the royal army would consider the Frestac Chamber of Commerce through the conditions he proposed this time. If they met something like this in the future, they could consider Sui and the Frestac Chamber of Commerce. So when he sent off 70's group of 3, 70's group had smiles on their faces because Sui agreed. Sui wasn't disappointed at all and also revealed a bright smile. After watching 70's group leave, Kennard, who came to send them off, suddenly said to Sui in a soft voice, "Chairman, What do you think of Her Highness? Su-yi was a bit surprised. What do you mean? That means you think that Her Highness is a person worth following? Kennard asked in a vague voice. Su-yi looked at Kennard, who had an unnatural expression, and revealed a faint smile. I don't know if she's worth following or not, but based on my current understanding of Her Highness, she is a person with the same ideals as me. We both want to use the power in our hands to improve the lives of the kingdom's people, so we work in the same direction. I think that as long as Her Highness doesn't change her thoughts, I will always support her. Kennard never thought that Su-yi would give such a clear answer. He looked at Su-yi in surprise for a while before saying with a serious look, I also have the same pursuit, so Chairman, I will work hard to help you. Su-yi laughed and waved his hand. All right, we are people who do things. Let's not talk about empty words. You said that you will work hard to help me. But what about the salary adjustment plan you mentioned? It's been more than half a month. It's been 3.5 months, and I still haven't seen the plan. You're telling me that you're working hard now? Kennard immediately complained with a bitter face. Chairman, you can't blame me for this. I was almost done with the calculations and was prepared to make a detailed plan, but I never thought that great magician Camilla would suddenly make such a shocking decision. It has caused a large change in the employees of our company, and all the calculations I made before have been wasted. Then what do you think you can give the plan to me? Su-yi didn't relax at all as he continued to ask. This, Kennard thought for a bit before saying with a sigh, because the company has recruited a large number of magicians who can complete the magic array work and research, as well as a large increase in orders. We will need to recruit a large number of workers to increase production. Then it will take a while for the salary adjustment plan to be completed. As for when I can give the plan, I'm not sure right now. Then you should give an approximate time, right? Su-yi said. In addition, the adjustment of the salary structure does not need to wait until all the workers have been recruited. The salary standards for these types of jobs should be determined before the workers are recruited. When the recruited workers enter the factory, the standards can be applied directly. I was thinking the same thing, so I've been working on this for the past few days. Kennard took a breath and confidently said, Give me another 10 days, and I'll definitely give you the plan. That's right. Su-yi nodded in satisfaction. But Chairman, the salary adjustment plan for the others is easy, but there is one person I can't do. Kennard said, Who can't do it? Could it be you? Su-yi asked in a surprised voice. How can I compare to this old man? I'm talking about great magician Camilla. Kennard said, Chairman, how do you think I should set the salary for a special researcher like him? Su-yi knit his brows and said with a bitter smile, I don't know if you're asking me this question. Last time I asked this old man how much I should give him, but he told me to do as I see fit and that he didn't care. After I carefully considered it, I found that this was indeed a very serious problem. If it's too low, it definitely won't work, but if it's too high, it will hurt the confidence of the other researchers. How about this? We don't need to set great magician Camilla's salary too high. But according to the reward system of the research facility, His Excellency Great Magician will definitely receive a lot of rewards. How about we increase the amount of rewards? Not only will this increase the salary of the Great Magician, it will also increase the enthusiasm of the researchers. What do you think? Kennard suggested. That's a good idea. All right, go back and carefully study it. What is the most suitable amount for this? Su-yi waved his hand, ending the discussion. Seeing Kennard take out a little book to write down what he said, Su-yi couldn't help feeling a trace of joy in his heart. Before Kennard came, there were many things in New Flyer that he had to personally take care of. But now that he had a general manager like Kennard, he only needed to wave his hand and give his thoughts and plans, and Kennard would naturally complete them. Although he had only been in New Flyer for less than 2 months, Kennard had already displayed his outstanding abilities. Under his management, the New Flyer was much smoother than before, and its efficiency had increased by quite a bit. Su-yi often felt emotional that he was a treasure that fell from the heavens. He was often worried that if he suddenly left, New Flyer wouldn't have a successor and would fall into chaos. Kennard didn't know that while he was writing down a few words, there were many thoughts in Su-yi's mind. After he finished writing down his work, he looked up at the sky and said to Su-yi, Chairman, The Vanilla Orchid Living Community's relocation ceremony is about to begin. We should head over now. Sui looked up to find that the sun was already above his head. He nodded and called for the horse carriage that had already been prepared, heading southwest of Banta City. ####. The so-called Vanilla Orchid Living Community was actually the new community that great magician Camilla mentioned last time. To put it simply, it was a community that was still being built. According to the Banta City renovation plan that Sui and Count Samo discussed, the first step was to replan the outskirts of Banta City. In the first step of the plan, including Mildan Village where great magician Camilla and Steele lived, 3 villages would be demolished. This Vanilla Orchid Living Community was prepared to build houses for the villagers of these 3 villages. Speaking of houses, people would think of the houses that were built all over China on Earth. The impression that they gave people was that the quality was bad and the environment wasn't good. In short, they had all kinds of shortcomings, so the villagers that were forced to move were very unwilling. However, the houses in this Vanilla Orchid Living Community were a completely different matter. The living standards of the people of the signs weren't high, and the living standards of the citizens of the Lampari Kingdom that had just recovered from the chaos were even lower. For a normal village outside Banta City, like Mildan Village, most of the houses the villagers lived in were small wooden houses made of broken boards or stone houses made of mud and stone. These 2 houses couldn't be considered of quality at all. They couldn't even keep out the most basic cold. If there was a bit of rain, the house would be filled with water. Living in these houses, the living conditions of the villagers were completely miserable in Sui's eyes. This Vanilla Orchid Living Community was built by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. With Sui's orders and financial support, the houses in the community were made of reinforced concrete and the walls were made of bricks mixed with cement. The entire structure was incomparably strong and reliable. Moreover, after it was finished, the outside of the houses were painted with white lime, making the houses look clean and white. Adding the fact that the houses were designed by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, they looked very beautiful and were simply the best houses to live in. Not to mention that other than the houses in the community, Sui had the elves of the Chamber of Commerce work together, spending time on greening the entire community. After it was finished, there were rows of beautiful 2-story houses in the community. There were all kinds of strange plants that normal Banta City citizens couldn't recognize. The shade was woven, and there was even a fragrance in the air. It was simply like a paradise on Earth. So just seeing these houses, the villagers of Mildan Village and the other 2 villages who were worried about moving decided to move without any hesitation. Even after seeing the houses, the villagers of the other villages that weren't part of the relocation plan all took the initiative to move. Faced with this situation, Sui could only sigh in his heart. Being poor also had its benefits. Chapter 240. The relocation of the Vanilla Orchid Community's villagers could be considered the first large action of the Banta City renovation project, which meant that the Banta City renovation project was on the right track. So when the first batch of villagers moved in, the City Lord's Manor held a grand ceremony, and even Count Samo personally came to preside over it. Other than Count Samo, the large companies of the city had all sent representatives to participate in the ceremony. The New Flyer and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, who were in charge of this project, were naturally the focus of everyone's attention. When Sui and Kennard arrived, the ceremony hadn't even begun yet. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's Chairman Cruz saw Sui and immediately came forward to greet him. "How is it? Chairman Sui, this Vanilla Orchid community isn't bad, right?" Chairman Cruz asked Sui with a proud look. Sui looked at him and found it a bit funny. "I've praised it many times. Why are you still asking me? If you want to show off, look, the Lord City Lord is over there. You should go find him." "Huh. This project was paid for by your New Flyer for our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Now that it's finished, of course I have to report it to the one who paid for it. As for the Lord City Lord, he has already praised us quite a bit. Since the Lord City Lord is satisfied, then it's fine." Sui patted Chairman Cruz's shoulder and said with a faint smile, "Chairman Cruz, since the first project was finished well, The Lord City Lord won't give the following projects to other companies. If this Banta City renovation project is all done by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, you will be rich. This is all thanks to Chairman Su's trust in us. Chairman Cruz laughed. He suddenly came closer to Su E and said in a low voice, Chairman Su, can I ask you 2 questions? What questions? Su E was a bit surprised. The first question. This vanilla orchid community was built by our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. So in front of you, I'll tell you the truth. Your new flyer invested 200,000 gold coins to build this community, right? Our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce spent a total of 170,000 gold coins and earned less than 30,000 gold coins. Chairman Cruz, you didn't earn much on my account, so I have to express my thanks. Su E said with a nod. I didn't want to talk about this. The problem is that our Omrit Chamber of Commerce has indeed earned money from this community, but I still can't see how your Frestac Chamber of Commerce can earn money from this. This time, you've invested 200,000 gold coins. I don't see how you can earn back 200,000 gold coins, President Cruz asked in confusion. Could it be that you've forgotten that this residential area is much smaller than the 3 villages? So he asked back, I do know this. But this community is outside Banda City, and the 3 villages are very far from each other. The closest Mildan village is over 5 kilometers away from Banda City. Based on this distance, the value of the land on both sides isn't on the same level. I still don't think this is a profitable business. Chairman Cruz knit his brows to think before asking in a low voice. Chairman Su, everyone's relationship is this good, so if you have a special way of earning money, you can let me hear it. Su, he revealed a faint smile before shaking his head and saying, actually, there isn't anything special. Although those 3 villages are indeed further from Banda City. Have you ever thought that those 3 villages are planned for Banda City's industrial area, not far from Santa Manor? If nothing unexpected happened, that area would become Banda City's industrial base in the future, and all the factories in Banda City would move there. Adding in the fact that your Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce is about to build a road, do you think that the value of that land will be as low as it is now? Chairman Cruz thought for a bit before suddenly thinking of something. His eyes lit up, and he revealed an understanding smile to Su E. Chairman Su, you really do have foresight. I admire you. Su E revealed a smile before asking, all right, what is your second question? The second question. President Cruz turned his head and pointed at the vanilla orchid living community where countless people were entering and exiting. This living community received the help of your company's design department and the elves, so it was very beautiful after it was built. Now not only is the Lord City Lord satisfied, the farmers who move in are also very satisfied. Even the people who came to visit the city are very satisfied. Many people even asked me if they could buy 1 or 2 of the houses and use them as their own residence. So you want to build another living community and sell it? Sui asked. Chairman Cruz looked at Su E in surprise. Chairman Su, how did you know what I wanted to say? Su E revealed a smile. After hearing what you said, it would be strange if I couldn't guess what you wanted to ask. The real estate industry was the most popular industry in China on Earth. Countless people relied on this industry to become rich. Chairman Cruz saw how popular the houses were, so it wasn't strange that he wanted to earn a bit from this. Actually, when Su E and Samo Count discussed the overall plan for Banda City, they had considered this matter. But whether it was Samo Count or Su E, they didn't plan on relying on real estate to earn money. They just wanted to replan Banda City, creating a living community in the outskirts of Banda City, separating it from the industrial area. So if Chairman Cruz wanted to use the Vanilla Orchid living community to build houses to earn money, Samo Count wouldn't agree. Is that so? Hearing Su Yi's response, Chairman Cruz was disappointed. I thought that with all the people in Banda City, this business would be very promising. AI. But since the Lord City Lord isn't willing to agree, we can only forget about it. Seeing the disappointed Chairman Cruz, he had an idea as he said, actually, it isn't impossible. Chairman Cruz revealed a look of joy. What do you think we should do? Su-yi thought about it before saying, The Lord City Lord just doesn't want you to take the planned living area and hinder Bana City's renovation plan. But outside of the planned area, there are many loopholes you can exploit. For example, the private territory of the nobles. Chairman Cruz was stunned. Noble territory? That is their private territory. How could they agree to me building houses there? Whether they agree or not, it depends on whether there are benefits for them or not. You can tell them that as long as they build houses with you, they can earn large amounts of money. Which noble do you think will reject you? Seeing Chairman Cruz fall into deep thought, Su-yi laughed. He thought that as long as Chairman Cruz was moved, he would definitely be able to move many nobles in the city. When the private territory of the nobles was covered in commercial housing, at that time, it wouldn't be considered private territory anymore. When the houses were built, they would be marked as public. Chairman Cruz didn't have much time to think because the ceremony was about to begin. First, Count Samo came on stage to give a long speech, giving a general introduction to the Banta City renovation plan of the City Lord Manor. He mentioned that the relocation of the 3 villages, including Mildan Village, was the first step of the Banta City renovation plan, and there were other measures to follow. After the basic introduction, it was time for Su-yi and Chairman Cruz to give their speeches. Of course, it was impossible for the two of them to give a long speech like Samo Count. They just expressed that the new flyer and the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce would support the Lord City Lord's decision, doing their best to complete the tasks the Lord City Lord gave them. When everyone had spoken, Count Samo officially announced the start of the relocation. Next was the first batch of 100 households that had been prepared long ago. With the help of the city guards, the villagers moved the pots and pans, bedding, pillowcases, tables, beds, chairs, cabinets, and other daily necessities that they had brought from their previous homes into their assigned houses. During this process, there were countless reporters who had been notified ahead of time that were looking for targets to interview. For a moment, the scene became extremely lively. Everyone, including the villagers, had happy smiles on their faces. It looked very harmonious. When this scene fell into Su-yi's eyes, it made him think of a popular phrase from Earth, putting on a show. That's right, it was the City Lord Manor that notified these reporters. Count Samo wanted to use this ceremony to put on a show, letting everyone know that the Banta City renovation plan couldn't be stopped and would definitely continue. Although Su-yi knew the importance of putting on a show, he wasn't used to this. After simply answering the questions of the reporters, he pushed the general manager, Kennard, out and had him accept the interviews. He secretly snuck out and came to the Academy of Magic in the city. Compared to when there were only Evita and the other 10 researchers, the current Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber Commerce had recruited 34 magicians in the last wave and had expanded by several times. Originally, other than providing a place for Evita and the others to conduct research, the Research Institute was also able to provide housing for Cecilia and the others. Now, there wasn't even enough space for each researcher to have their own research room. Because of this, the new researchers had to squeeze into the same research room. Of course, compared to the working environment of many magicians before, this Academy of Magic was already much better, so there weren't any researchers that complained. Of course, even if they did, they wouldn't dare say it, because Great Magician Camilla also worked at the Academy of Magic. Compared to His Excellency, Great Magician, what did they count for? But even if no one complained, Su-yi was still considering buying a place outside the city and building a new flyer research center. If he gathered all the researchers of the company there, it would make it easier for everyone to work together. But there weren't many places like this, so he had to let these magicians squeeze in here for now. When Su-yi walked through the door of the Research Institute, he saw Akali walking in. Seeing Akali's angry appearance, Su-yi couldn't help being surprised. Chapter 241. Hey, Akali, who made you angry? Su-yi immediately asked. Akali raised her head and saw that it was Su-yi. She immediately snorted coldly. It's that bastard Shot. What's wrong with Shot? Su-yi was a little puzzled. Although Shot had always been a little cold to Su-yi, and even a little hostile, he acted normally in front of others. He was also very gentlemanly to the girls. How did he suddenly make Akali so angry? He's too full of himself. I already told him that the wind crystal grass juice can't be mixed into the sun-fire spell formation because there will definitely be a problem because of the conflicting attributes. However, he just didn't listen and insisted on adding it, saying that he wanted to try. In the end, as soon as the spell formation was activated, it exploded. Akali said hatefully. He was shocked. Was anyone injured? No. Akali shook her head. Everyone reacted very quickly and used a protective barrier to protect themselves in time. Nothing happened. However, the explosion made a mess of the laboratory. I said that it was Shot's fault and told him to clean it up himself. In the end, he actually dared to talk back to me and said that the laboratory was everyone's. Humph. I'm so angry. Hearing that no one was injured, Sue relaxed and said with a smile, he's right. The laboratory is everyone's, so it's normal for there to be an experiment accident. Everyone should clean it up together. Akali glared. Sir President, according to what you said, he's not wrong. I didn't say that. Sue waved his hand. Because of his mistake, the experiment failed and the equipment in the laboratory was damaged. All of these losses will be on his head. According to the rules, these losses will be deducted from his new salary next month. Hearing Su Yi's last sentence, Akali immediately laughed. Haha, let's see if he still dares to be so arrogant. Yes, deduct his salary and let him know the seriousness of the matter. Seeing Akali's gloating face, Su Yi shook his head. Just as he was about to ask Akali about the research progress, he heard a cold snort behind him. Sir President, failure is a common occurrence in magical research. If we, the researchers, have to bear the losses every time an experiment fails, doesn't that mean that we, the researchers of the Academy of Magic, can no longer think of doing any novel experiments in the future and only need to do the most reliable things honestly? If that's the case, what's the point of this research institute? He turned his head and looked at the cold-faced Shuchi. He said sternly, no, it's exactly the opposite. I encourage you to use your imagination boldly and to do all kinds of novel experiments. But before that, my first request is safety. Nothing happened this time, so why are you punishing me? Shock was still unconvinced. Because you didn't consider the consequences of a failed experiment. This time, everyone reacted quickly and protected themselves in time, so they weren't injured. If someone didn't protect themselves, or if the explosion after your experiment failed was too powerful and couldn't be protected, causing someone to be injured or even lose their life, what do you think would happen? He said with a serious face. Shock was silent. He didn't dare to guarantee that every experiment would succeed. On the contrary, he failed most of the time. He also didn't dare to guarantee that the destruction after each failure would be within his control, so he couldn't answer Su Yi's question. Seeing that Shock wasn't speaking, Su Yi ignored him and asked Akali. He knew that Evita was in her personal research room, so he walked in that direction. Establish a safety standard? Evita looked at Su Yi with surprise. President, magicians will always fail in their experiments. This isn't strange, right? It's not strange to fail, but I won't allow people to be injured because of a failed experiment. Every magician and every researcher is precious. If a failed experiment causes a person to be injured or even lose their life, that is a loss I can't accept. Su Yi's expression was serious and didn't look like he was joking at all. For example, Evita, if you were injured because of a failed experiment, even if it wasn't a serious injury, it would only be a scar on your face, but it would still be an irreparable loss to you because it would affect your beauty, right? Evita's face turned slightly red. President, do you think I'm beautiful? Su Yi was surprised and replied naturally, Of course you're beautiful. Isn't that obvious? Evita's face turned even redder. She slightly lowered her head and said in a soft voice, All right, since it's the president's request, then we'll set a safety standard. But how should we set it? I don't care how we set it. Evita, you're the dean of the Academy of Magic. You could decide how to set the rules. In short, my request is that when researchers do magic experiments, they must first pay attention to their own safety. Su Yi said. Seeing Evita still had her head lowered, Su Yi thought she lacked confidence and comforted her. "Evita, you're the most attentive girl I've ever seen. You're always very considerate when it comes to problems. I believe you'll definitely do a good job." Sui didn't see that Evita's lowered face had turned completely red. He only heard her make a soft sound of agreement. After explaining the safety standard, Sui looked at the situation in the lab and asked Evita about the recent progress of the Academy of Magic. Speaking of research, Evita gradually calmed down and began to introduce the research progress to Sui. According to Sui's request, the Academy of Magic's recent research focused on improving the power of various magic machines. Take the small magic harvester, for example. The magic array on it was a third-grade wind magic array, the Wild Wind Magic Array. With the power of this magic array, it was enough to satisfy the power requirements of the small magic harvester. But now that Sui was planning on developing the large and medium-sized magic harvester, the power provided by the Wild Wind Magic Array wasn't enough. Therefore, the Academy of Magic had divided their research into two directions. The first direction was more direct, which was to change to a higher-level magic array to provide more power. Currently, he had confirmed that there were 3 Tier 4 Wind-type magic arrays and 1 Tier 5 Wind-type magic array. According to their research, these 4 magic arrays could all be used because each magic array had a different characteristic. After knowing this result, Sui waved his hand and had the Academy of Magic study these 4 magic arrays. It would be best if they could find the most suitable power output method for each magic array before giving them to the Magic Machine Development Workshop and the company's design department to design. If it was the previous research facility because they didn't have enough people, Sui naturally wouldn't make this request. But now that they had recruited 34 magicians, the research facility's strength had greatly increased, so it wasn't too hard for them to complete this request. The reason why Sui made this request was because he wanted the magic harvester to be more adaptable. In the Lampari Kingdom, or rather the Signs, it was impossible for it to be all plains like Banda City. If the agricultural magic machines produced by New Flyer were to be sold everywhere, of course they had to take out more adaptable plans. As for the second direction of research, it was much more complicated, because this direction of research wasn't changing to a new magic array, rather it was adjusting the Wild Wind Array itself. It would change its power output method to suit different requirements. Other than that, Sui proposed that while maintaining the Wild Wind Array as a foundation, it would increase the power of the magic array to increase its power output. When this idea was proposed, it was opposed by almost all the researchers in the research facility. This was because the magic array grades were the result of thousands of years of research in the Signs, which contained the wisdom of countless magicians. The Wild Wind Array was a third-grade magic array, so of course there was a reason for it, and it couldn't be easily changed. But after great magician Camilla heard Sui's suggestion, he unexpectedly expressed that this research could be done. The reason he gave was that magic arrays were different from magic. Although each magic array had a corresponding magic, and the Wild Wind Array corresponded to the Wild Wind Array, the casting of the magic depended on a magician's magic power and understanding of magic. The magic array depended on the arrangement of the magic array and the materials used to arrange the magic array. The power of the same magic would be different because of the magician's magic power and understanding of magic. So the power of the magic array could also be different because of the difference in the arrangement and the different materials used, or rather it could be increased. Since His Excellency Great Magician said it could be done, the other magicians in the research facility naturally didn't have any objections. After a month of research, the Academy of Magic's research had already shown some results. Now that the Academy of Magic had researched the Wild Wind Array 3.0, there was a clear increase in power, increasing the power output by 30%. According to Sui's calculations, if this Wild Wind Array was placed on the small magic harvester, it would increase the efficiency of the small magic harvester by at least 10%. Don't look down on 10%. For industrial machine research, even a 1% increase was quite significant. After hearing Evita's report, Sui was very satisfied. After recruiting 34 more magicians, the Academy of Magic's efficiency had greatly increased. The more important thing was that with great magician Camilla here, the researchers' enthusiasm and work attitude had greatly increased. The researchers would often have many strange ideas, but it was hard to determine if their ideas would be effective or not. Before, they would keep these strange ideas in their hearts, but now that great magician Camilla was here, and Sue, he kept encouraging them. The researchers were willing to reveal their ideas and let everyone discuss it before finally letting great magician Camilla make the decision. With Suyi's instructions, other than those ideas that didn't seem reliable at all, great magician Camilla had a positive attitude towards all the ideas and encouraged everyone to give it a try. So in just a short month, the Magic Research Institute of the new Flying Chamber of Commerce had made a leap in the research of magic arrays. When Sue was thinking about recruiting 1 or 2 more great magicians into the Academy of Magic, Evita suddenly said, "Chairman, I think that the research facility will be closed for a few days." Chapter 242. 5 days later, a motorcade of 10 horse carriages with the symbol of the Fersen Carriage Company slowly entered Anvilmar City. The motorcade came to the largest Sheldon Inn in Anvilmar City, and the servants wearing the uniform of the Sheldon Inn came forward to greet them. When the doors opened, the researchers of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce jumped out one after another. Bella looked up at the 4 stories tall Sheldon Inn that took up a large part of Anvilmar City. Just based on its appearance, one could tell that it was incomparably luxurious, and she couldn't help giving a gasp of surprise. "Sir Chairman, are we really going to live in such a good place?" "That's right. I've heard that this place is very expensive. It costs at least 10 gold coins a night." Claire on the side couldn't help calling out in surprise. It wasn't just the 2 of them who were surprised. The others also had shocked looks on their faces. The reason why these magicians chose to work at the New Flyers Academy of Magic was secondary. The most important reason was that the New Flyers' treatment was high enough. From another angle, their economic conditions were very normal. For a top-class hotel like the Sheldon Inn in the Lampari Kingdom, these magicians had never stayed in it before. Now that they had personally seen how luxurious the Sheldon Inn was, thinking about how they were going to live in such a luxurious hotel, they couldn't help feeling excited. It should be around this price," Sue vaguely replied. In fact, he had booked 20 rooms in the Sheldon Inn a month in advance and booked them for a week. The total cost was an astonishing 2,000 gold coins. It had to be known, this was enough to pay a month's salary for the researchers at the Academy of Magic. The reason for this was because the Sorcerers Guild's certification exam that had been delayed for a month was about to begin. Most of the magicians at the Academy of Magic were under the 5th level, so of course they wouldn't give up the chance to take the certification exam. The reason why Evita said that the Academy of Magic would be closed for a few days was because even the principal would be coming to Anvilmar City to take the certification exam, so the researchers at the Academy of Magic wouldn't be able to finish their work. Evita had already reported this matter to Sue a month ago. After Sue considered it, he decided to give all the researchers at the Academy of Magic a week off. He also booked 20 rooms in the Sheldon Inn a month in advance for the researchers to take the certification exam. This decision instantly raised Su Yi's prestige in the minds of these researchers to the peak. It had to be known that every year during the Sorcerers Guild's certification exam, there would be a large influx of magicians in Anvilmar City. During this time, it was already very difficult to find a safe place to stay, let alone a place as high class and comfortable as the Sheldon Inn. In the past, every time the researchers came to take the certification exam, they had to spend a lot of effort to find a place to stay. Now that the new flyer had taken care of everything, they didn't have any worries and could focus on the exam. This was a very beneficial thing for them. Even without mentioning the high salary of the new flyer, just this benefit was enough for them to not regret their decision to join the new flyer. After bringing everyone into the Sheldon Inn to check in, the sharp-eyed Bella noticed that Sue hadn't checked in. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "Sir Chairman, you're not staying with us? Could it be that you're not taking the exam like us?" "Bella, you idiot." Claire looked at Bella and whispered into Bella's ear with a mysterious smile, "Did you forget? Great magician Camilla came to Ambilmar City a few days ago with Steel, so of course Sir Chairman has to stay with Steel. That's right. Bella clapped her hands and suddenly understood. If he's staying with us, how can he enjoy some alone time with Steel? I really am stupid. Seeing the smiles on everyone's faces, Sui didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and said, "First, I haven't decided if I want to participate in the certification exam. Second, I'm not staying here because I have many things to do in Ambilmar City, so it's not convenient for me to stay here. All right, you've already finished your paperwork, so you can go and rest. You've been on the road for 2 days, you must be tired." That's right. After sitting in the carriage for 2 days, my butt feels like it's going to split into a few pieces, Bella complained with a frown as she rubbed her perky butt. Bella complained with a frown. "Sir Chairman, when do you think you can build a road from Banta City to Ambilmar City? Then we wouldn't have to work so hard on our way here." That's right. If we build a road, we might be able to get here in a day and wouldn't be so miserable on the road. The one who agreed with Bella this time was a collie who had just finished her tour of the Sheldon Inn. "President, why don't you fork out some money to build this road?" Sue couldn't help smiling. "You think that I can build it just because I want to? But this road is one of the things I came to Ambilmar City to do this time. If it goes smoothly, perhaps this road will be built next year, and you won't have to suffer like this." "Really? That's great." Akira and Bella cheered at the same time and gave each other a high five. Then they said to Sue with excited looks, "Sir Chairman, this is what you said. If the road isn't built when we come for the certification exam next year, we'll blame you then." Sue laughed and wanted to urge them to rest, but he found Alex running in with 5 people from the Sheldon Inn. "Chairman, I'm here." Alex greeted Sue before looking at the magicians beside Sue and asking, "Are they the researchers you mentioned in the letter?" They're all." Sue nodded and looked at the 5 people Alex brought. "Are they the best tailors in the city?" "They are definitely the best." Alex patted his chest and said with certainty, "I had Victor and the others find them for me many days in advance." "Chairman, even if you don't believe me, you should believe in Victor and the others' abilities, right? The 3 of them are the local tyrants here. I don't doubt their abilities in this area." Sue replied and looked at Alex with a frown. When Alex first came to Ambilmar City a year ago, he looked like a normal citizen from a small city. Whether it was his appearance or his clothes, he was very rustic. When he heard that Sue, he wanted him to stay here and be the person in charge of the new flyer in Ambilmar City. He didn't have much confidence. In this year, Sue had many things to do and didn't have the time or opportunity to come to Ambilmar City. Now that he saw Alex again after a year, he found that he had completely changed compared to a year ago. First of all, the clothes he was wearing were very luxurious. One could tell at a glance that the cloth was expensive and the workmanship was exquisite. It definitely wasn't cheap. Next was that he was filled with confidence and even arrogance. Other than being a bit humble in front of Sue he had his head slightly raised when he looked at the magicians, looking down on them like he was looking down on them. Sue was a bit surprised by this large change, and he didn't like the frivolous attitude he had right now. But since he was Heinz's favorite nephew, although he didn't like it, he didn't plan on criticizing him after considering it. Looking at the 5 people behind Alex, Sue nodded and continued, "All right, since everyone is here, let's have the 5 of them take the measurements of these researchers. Alex, come with me to Victor's shop and see the situation." "Okay." Alex hurriedly agreed and turned around to instruct the 5 people. The 5 people immediately took out a bunch of measuring tools and surrounded the group of researchers. The researchers were stunned as they watched the 5 of them take their measurements. Akali couldn't help asking Sue "Sir Chairman, what is this for?" Sue revealed a faint smile. "Don't be afraid. I'm just having them make a set of uniforms for you." "What? Could it be that you don't like your new clothes?" Akali and the others wanted to ask why they were making uniforms for them, but Sue had already left the Sheldon Inn with Alex. It should be said that Victor's group of 3 didn't disappoint Suyi's evaluation of them as local tyrants. In Ambilmar City, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, They actually found a stall in the busiest street of Anvilmar City and opened this household magic machine store. Although this stall wasn't big, being less than 50 square meters, the store was only used to display samples. With such a large stall, it was enough to display the various Xinfei brand household magic machines that they were selling. It should be said that Victor's group of 3 had put quite a bit of effort into this store. It was clear that the store had been guided by experts. After entering, one would find that although the store was a bit dark, there was a magic lamp that was used to light up each sample. It made people unable to help focusing their attention on the household magic machines after entering. Adding in the fact that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's household magic machines were made of the new steel alloy and they were designed by Agnes and Vivian, they looked very beautiful. Under the light, it was like a piece of art, so naturally it attracted people's eyes. When Sue, E, and Alex walked in, there were 3 people looking at the various household magic machines in the store. The one who greeted them wasn't Victor's group of 3. Rather, it was the salesperson they hired. But the 3 of them had listened to Su Yi's suggestion and had left someone to guard the store. Today it was Urgit's turn. Seeing that Sue, E, and Alex came in together, Urgit was filled with joy and came forward with a bright smile. Then Sui saw him come over, and he had a serious look on his face. Urgit, your store is facing a crisis right now. Chapter 243. Hearing Su Yi's words, Urgit's bright smile immediately collapsed. He gave a sigh and shook his head. He led Sue, E, and Alex in the back room of the store and poured a cup of tea for Sue, E before looking at Sue, E with a trace of complaint. Chairman Sue, the crisis we're facing now, to be honest, it was all caused by you. Sue, E revealed a faint smile. Do you really think this? Urgit's expression froze. After thinking about it, he honestly replied, That's right. If it wasn't for you being the first to cooperate with the Walmart Chamber of Commerce, how could they think of selling household magic machines? Other than that, Chairman Sue, I've heard that the idea of the Walmart Chamber of Commerce opening a household magic machine store, was it given to them by you? Right, it was indeed my idea. Sue, he nodded. How could you be like this? Urgit instantly raised his voice and said in a loud voice, Chairman Sue, how could you only care about making money for your company and forget about us 3 brothers? You have to know, if it wasn't for us working hard, how could the Xinfei brand household magic machines be this famous in Anvilmar City? How could they sell this well? Sue looked at the excited Urgit before looking at the silent Alex beside him, and a trace of disappointment appeared in his heart. This disappointment wasn't just because of Urgit's words, it was also because of Alex's reaction. It was clearly him who had given Victor, Muru, and Urgit this profitable business, letting them earn over 50,000 gold coins from selling the Xinfei brand household magic machines in a single year. They actually didn't show any gratitude to him at all. When they heard that he had given the idea of the Walmart Chamber of Commerce opening a household magic machine store, which would threaten their business, they actually directly criticized him. Alex was clearly Heinz's favorite nephew, and Sue had trained him, even giving him the important and lucrative job of New Flyers manager in Anvilmar City. Now that he didn't say a single word about this situation, it was clear that he agreed with Urgit's words. Sue didn't know how Alex had spent a year in Anvilmar City, but based on the current situation, he was no longer the simple city youth from before. After being with Victor's group for a year, he had already changed. With these thoughts in his mind, Sue asked Urgit, Is this your idea alone, or is it the idea of the 3 of you? Urgit was stunned before hesitantly saying, It's the idea of the 3 of us. Anyway, Victor and Muru both feel that Chairman Sue's actions this time aren't honest. Sue obtained a bit of comfort from this answer. It seemed like Victor and Muru weren't as unreasonable and stupid as Urgit, knowing that they needed to rely on themselves to earn money. But based on Urgit's answer, the 3 of them were indeed dissatisfied with Sue because of this matter. This was understandable. The 3 of them had earned over 50,000 gold coins in a single year with the Xinfei brand household magic machine store. So of course they weren't willing to let the hen that laid the golden eggs fly away. Now that the store's business was seriously threatened, it was normal for them to be anxious. So aren't I here? He spread his hands and said with a smile. I understand that this matter is indeed a threat to the business here, but I hope that you can understand that as the new Flyers chairman, I have to be responsible for the development of the company. Cooperating with the Walmart Chamber of Commerce. Not only can it greatly increase the sales of our Sheen Fei brand household magic machines, it can also increase the fame of our company. So, of course, I can't reject you. But have you ever thought about us? Urget knew that Su Yi's words were reasonable, so he could only force himself to ask this. Yes. Look, I've just come to Ambilmar City and haven't gone anywhere before coming here. Do you think that I haven't thought about you? Urget looked at Alex, and seeing Alex nod, his expression finally relaxed. Cool. Chairman Su, I was too excited just now, don't mind it. Can you tell me how you've thought about us? Urget looked at Su Yi with an expectant gaze. Since he listened to Su Yi's suggestion and earned a large amount of money from cooperating with the new flyer, he was filled with admiration for Su Yi in his heart, adding in the fact that in this year, they would often see reports on the Frestec Chamber of Commerce and Su Yi in the newspapers of Ambilmar City. In these newspapers, there was praise for the new flyer and Su Yi. This made Urget very clear that perhaps Su Yi couldn't be considered an important person right now, but his eyes, knowledge, and wisdom couldn't be compared to normal people. To put it simply, listening to him wouldn't be wrong. Seeing Urget obediently listening, Su Yi said with a nod with a smile. First, we have to be clear about something. The Walmart Chamber of Commerce is the largest grocery store in our Lampari kingdom, and with your small store, you definitely can't compete with them. Urget kept nodding. So the three of us have headaches. Victor already asked around, and the Walmart Chamber of Commerce sells household magic machines at a lower price than us, so we can't compete at all. This is what you haven't thought through yet. Su, he shook his head and said, since you know that you can't compete with them, then don't compete with them. Don't use your disadvantage to compete with other people's advantage. Rather use your advantage. My own advantage? Urget frowned. Urget knit his brows. What advantage do we have compared to the Walmart Chamber of Commerce? Of course. Su Yi pointed at himself. Su Yi pointed at the Sheen Fei brand household magic machine store that new flyer and I have personally recognized, so this is your biggest advantage. Urget still had a confused look. I don't understand. What kind of advantage is this? You don't understand? Su Yi revealed a smile and took out a document from his bag for Urget. Take a look at this. Perhaps you'll understand after reading it. Urget took the document with a confused look and found that it was a contract. After looking at Su Yi in surprise, he looked over it with Alex, who came over in curiosity. At first, the two of them had question marks on their heads, but as they read on, their eyes became brighter and brighter. After reading it all, Urget closed the contract and seriously thought for a bit before giving a certain nod. Chairman Su, I have to say your ideas really are great. If we do as you say and make this store the same as your new flyer service center in Bana City, I think that if the price is around the same, most customers will choose to buy from our store to be more assured. Right, I will provide the necessary technical and personnel support here, guaranteeing that this place will be a window for our new flyer in Ambilmar City. Su Yi's expression suddenly became serious. The performance of this window will decide the reputation of our new flyer in Ambilmar City. So if you decide to sign this new contract, I will strictly follow the requirements of the contract. If you feel that you can't do it, I urge you to reject it. Because it is important, I will not show any mercy on this contract. Urget was stunned by Su Yi's emotionless expression and couldn't say anything for a while. After a while, he finally gave a hesitant nod. I will properly discuss this with Victor and Muru. That's good. When I left the store, the curtain of night had already fallen and the sky over Ambilmar City was already covered in darkness. Su Yi looked at the lively streets of Ambilmar City outside the store before turning back to look at Urget, who was greeting two customers with a smile. He secretly gave a sigh in his heart. Actually, if he had a choice, he really wanted to stop cooperating with Victor's group, because based on Urget's attitude, it would be hard for them to become good partners. This was because they were too selfish, and more importantly, they didn't have any foresight or ability to adapt. But to build a window for the new flyer in Ambilmar City, like Su Yi said, With Sue, E, and the new Flyers almost zero foundation in Amblmar City, it would be a very hard thing to do. So Sue, E could only rely on the three of them to create a window in Amblmar City for now. Although Sue, E still had doubts about whether the three of them could do this well, without a better choice. This was a choice that he had no choice but to make. Thinking of this, Sue, E couldn't help but look at Alex walking beside him. He thought that if this fellow worked hard in the past year and was able to build his own network, then Sue, he would definitely be able to use some of his connections in Amblmar City to build an ideal window with Alex as the core. However, Alex didn't seem to have made any progress apart from getting closer to Victor's group in the past year. How could Sue give this heavy responsibility to him? In the end, we still don't have enough people. Sue couldn't help but sigh. If only people like Kennard could give me a bit more. Alex saw that Sue's expression hadn't been good since they left the store, and now that he suddenly sighed, he thought about it before quickly saying, "Chairman, it's already late. How about we go eat something first? I know a very good restaurant. You can eat the specialties of our Urbana City there. Then I'll bring you to a good place to rest. Victor and I often go there, and it's very comfortable. The girls there are all very beautiful." Alex couldn't keep talking because he suddenly found that Sue's face was terrifyingly dark. Seeing Sue's ice-cold expression, Alex immediately knew that he had said something wrong. He wanted to explain, but he didn't know how to explain, so he was speechless for a while. Sue coldly looked at Alex for a while before finally suppressing the disappointment and anger in his heart. He took a slow breath and said in a calm voice, "No need to be that troublesome. Steele and great magician Camilla should be waiting for me. We'll go find them now." Hearing Sue say the name Steele, Alex suddenly understood. He had heard that Sir Chairman was officially dating young Miss Steele, but he actually dared to suggest to Sir Chairman that he should go to that kind of place. It would be strange if Sir Chairman wasn't angry. Alex wiped the cold sweat off his head and quickly led the way, quickly heading to the place Sue mentioned. Chapter 244. On the second day, Sue came to Amblmar City, which was also the first day of the Sorcerer's Guild certification exam. When most of the magicians in the city came to the Sorcerer's Guild certification exam on the busiest Champs-Élysées street of Amblmar City, there was a giant store that opened for business. This store actually took up over 1,000 square meters of space on the Champs-Élysées street. When it opened, there were countless luxurious horse carriages with various noble badges that stopped at the door, instantly attracting everyone's attention. When people saw the sign on the newly opened store, they would be surprised at first because they were familiar with the three words on the sign, which was Walmart. As for the remaining words, Household Magic Machine Store, they could only recognize them, but they didn't understand what it meant at all. That's right, this store's name was Walmart Household Magic Machine Store. Of course, this confusion only lasted for a short period of time before people quickly reacted. This was because half a month ago, the Walmart Chamber of Commerce had started advertising in all the large and small newspapers of Urbana City. At the same time, they had put up large advertisements in all the large and small alleys of Amblmar City. They had even hired many people to distribute leaflets in the city, shouting while handing them out. With such a strong advertising campaign, if there was a citizen of Amblmar City that didn't know that the Walmart Household Magic Machine Store was opening today, it could only mean that they had gone out during this time or they were blind and deaf. Regarding the concept of household magic machines, although there were many people in Amblmar City who had some understanding from the reports in the city's newspapers and the Sheen Fei brand household magic machine store that Victor's group opened, there weren't many people in Amblmar City who knew about it, and they didn't have a deep understanding of it. But whether you knew it before or not, after the Walmart Chamber of Commerce's wild advertising this time, everyone began to understand this concept. Everyone knew that the so-called household magic machines were machines that used magic to make things that were very convenient for people's lives. For example, the magic air conditioner, it could replace the large-scale frost array and the large-scale flame array, providing a comfortable temperature in the hot summer and cold winter months. Or for example, the automatic magic rice cooker. As long as one put rice and water in and pressed the switch, they didn't care about anything else and patiently waited for a while, they would be able to cook fragrant rice. And for example, because of the Walmart Chamber of Commerce's advertisements, everyone in Anvilmar City knew about the powerful uses of these household magic machines. Before this Walmart household magic machine store even opened, people were already looking forward to it in their hearts. By the time it officially opened for business today, early in the morning, the outside of the shop was already crowded with people, which almost made the entire Champs-Élysées Avenue impenetrable. According to the Walmart Chamber of Commerce's advertising, because it was first come, first serve, first serve, first serve, first come, first serve. First come, first serve. At the same time, the customers who bought any household magic machine in the mall could get a discount from the Walmart Chamber of Commerce's general store with their receipt. Therefore, at 8 o'clock in the morning, a supervisor from the Walmart Chamber of Commerce made a brief speech on the stage in front of the mall, announcing the official opening of the mall. The crowd immediately rushed in the moment the mall opened the door. Like a flood, the huge space in the mall was packed in the blink of an eye. Hank Wilson looked at the crowd below and couldn't help praising Sue E. with a nod. "Chairman Sue, your idea of limited purchases really isn't bad. Look, in order to buy it as soon as possible, these people aren't even seriously checking the quality of the goods." Sue E. revealed a faint smile. "There's a special term for this. It's called hunger selling. It's to make people feel that they can't buy it if they're late, so they can't satisfy everyone's needs. Adding in your preferential policies, people want to take advantage of you, so of course they don't care about anything else." Chairman Sue really grasps the thoughts of these customers. Sitting in front of Sue E. was an old man with white hair who looked to be at least 60 years old. He was quite spirited. He was the current chairman of the Walmart Chamber of Commerce, Colmar Runst. From the various rumors, I always thought that Chairman Sue was more like a magician, focusing on magic research. Now that I've seen you, Chairman Sue, I've found that you are a very outstanding merchant. Chairman Runst is too kind. Sue E. revealed a modest smile. "This is just a small trick. It isn't much. The Walmart Chamber of Commerce has become one of the largest companies in the Lampari Kingdom under the leadership of Chairman Runst. That is truly powerful. Kennard often mentions you in front of me, being filled with respect and admiration for you." "Respect and admiration for me?" Chairman Runst snorted softly. "I watched this kid grow up since he was young. I saw that he was very smart since he was young and was very interested in business, so I planned on training him to be my successor. In the future, he would manage the Walmart Chamber of Commerce for the Emma family, but I never thought that after training him a bit, he would actually run to your Frestec Chamber of Commerce to be that. General manager? How infuriating." So he couldn't help but snicker. Was Chairman Runst blaming him for plucking the fruit of his hard work? "Well, Chairman Runst, I don't think that Kennard will always work for our Chamber of Commerce. Letting him experience a different model of our Chamber of Commerce and gain some experience and training will be very helpful for his growth. Don't you think so?" Chairman Runst glanced at Sue E. and nodded. "That's not wrong. Chairman Sue, the new flyer you manage has many unique aspects. Letting him stay by your side to learn is a good choice. But Chairman Sue, you know that Kennard won't always work for your Chamber of Commerce, yet you still give him so many important tasks. Aren't you afraid of problems? Don't doubt people you use. Don't use people you don't trust." Sue E. smiled. "Since I've chosen Kennard to be the general manager, then I believe that he can do the work I give him well. As for whether he will leave in the future, changes in personnel are unavoidable in every Chamber of Commerce. I'll do my best to prepare in advance." Chairman Runst slowly shook his head and sighed. "That kid Kennard is lucky to have a chairman like you." "All right, let's not talk about that kid. Let's get down to business. Hank, show the plan to Chairman Sue." Hank Wilson on the side replied before taking out a plan for Sue. Sue E. carefully looked it over and found that this plan was mainly about the Walmart Chamber of Commerce opening household magic machine stores in the other cities of the Lampari Kingdom. According to this plan, if the household magic machine store in Anvilmar City had good sales, the Walmart Chamber of Commerce would carry out this plan step by step. Their final goal was to open a store in each city of the kingdom. Of course, to open these stores, They needed the support of the Banta City magic machine companies led by New Flyer. So in this plan, there were some requests for the New Flyer and the other companies. He carefully looked it over, and after thinking for a bit, he said to Chairman Runst, "Based on the situation today, I'm not worried about the sales of this store. But Chairman Runst, I feel that this plan is a bit too optimistic." "Oh, how is it optimistic?" Chairman Runst asked back. "The reason why this store is so popular right now, although it seems like it's because of the sales on the opening day and the attraction of the household magic machines, the most important reason is that the people of Anvilmar City have enough spending power." "Spending power?" Runst pondered for a while before nodding. "Oh, that's right. Anvilmar City is, after all, the capital of our Lampari kingdom. So naturally the people here are richer than the people of other places in the kingdom. So we can't use the situation here as a reference and apply it to other places. Compared to Anvilmar City, the spending power of the people of other places isn't as strong. Perhaps they want to buy household magic machines, but there are many people who can't even fill their stomachs. Even if they want to buy, they don't have enough money." He said, "Although the household magic machines aren't that expensive, each one costs several gold coins, or even several dozen gold coins. Normal families wouldn't be able to afford this." Chairman Runst thought for a bit before asking with slightly knit brows, "But Chairman Su, according to my understanding, the various magic machines your New Flyer produces sell in a shocking amount in Banta City. Banta City can be considered one of the poorer cities in the kingdom. Since these household magic machines can sell this much in Banta City, it shouldn't be a problem in the other cities." "There's a difference," he said. "One of the main problems is transportation. Our New Flyer's household magic machines can sell well in Banta City because we produce and sell them locally. There is no transportation cost, so it isn't a problem to lower the price. But if we sell them in other cities, because of the increase in transportation costs, the price can't be kept low." "Transportation costs." Chairman Runst knit his brows even more. "I've also considered this problem. But Chairman Su, according to my understanding, your New Flyer's household magic machines have a very high profit margin. Can't you lower the price a bit to increase the sales volume?" Hearing this question, He revealed a faint smile. Chairman Runst had gone around in circles, but he couldn't help revealing his true goal in the end. Chapter 245. And then? Did you agree? Steele asked Su-Yi with a curious look. "Of course not." Su-Yi shook his head. In the end, he just wants our New Flyer to take the lead in lowering the price, and then the other companies in Banta City will follow suit. Like this, their Walmart Chamber of Commerce will be able to purchase goods at a lower price, and their cost will be much lower. Then their purchase price will be even lower, so they can also lower the price in the market. Steele said, "I feel that Chairman Runst is right. If the price is lowered, the sales volume will definitely increase. In summary, it's very likely that the overall profit will increase." He looked at Steele and shook his head before giving a sigh. Steele really didn't understand the market. That was why she said such wishful thinking. First, not to mention if the Walmart Chamber of Commerce would lower their purchase price. Just lowering the price was a very dangerous thing in Su-Yi's eyes. It was like how the stock market on Earth used to be popular before it became popular in the real estate market. People would buy to go up and not buy to go down. If the price was suddenly lowered, people's first thought wouldn't be to buy it when it was lowered. Rather, they would think that since it had already been lowered once, it would be lowered a second time, a third time. So they wouldn't be in a rush to buy it. Moreover, once the price was lowered, it was very hard to stop it. If the New Flyer lowered their price, even if Su-Yi didn't say anything, the other magic machine companies in Banta City would have to lower their prices as well. As long as the New Flyer took the lead, the other companies might find that this was a good method and would use an even more exaggerated price to increase their sales volume. If there were many companies that followed this, it would become a price war that could be seen everywhere on Earth. The magic machine industry was currently a very weak industry. It was fine when the New Flyer company monopolized it before, so Su-Yi could do whatever he wanted. But now that he was leading the way, there were many other companies that were entering this industry. In order for this industry to continue developing, Su-Yi he had to consider the impact of everything he did. If there was a price war when the magic machine industry had just started, it would make the profit margins of all the companies in this industry fall. It would also make the companies that had just entered this industry lose their confidence and interest, which would be a large hit to the entire industry. So after the Banta City Magic Machine Business Association was established, the first rule that Sue, E, and the other companies had set was that when each company sold their magic machines, they had to discuss the price, and they weren't allowed to maliciously bid. Now that Chairman Runst was asking Sue, E to take the lead in lowering the price, of course he couldn't agree. Of course, the Walmart Chamber of Commerce was the most important sales partner of most of the magic machine companies in Banta City, so Sue, E couldn't go against Chairman Runst's face. Although he couldn't agree to lowering the price, Sue, E had another plan, which was to fix the roads. Since the most important factor that affected the price of household magic machines in other cities was the high cost of transportation, then it was better to reduce this cost. In front of Chairman Runst and Vice Chairman Wilson, Sue, E gave the example of the Bonkar Road and Banta Road. According to the data that Sue, E gave, compared to before these two roads were built, the cost of transporting goods from Banta City to Karma City and Saltan City had decreased by 34% and 38% respectively. And this was including the toll of the roads. For a world like Signs that wasn't developed, the transportation cost was the biggest obstacle to the flow of goods. The Walmart Chamber of Commerce that sold groceries had a deeper understanding of this than any other company. So when Sue, E said the numbers of 34% and 38%, Chairman Runst and Vice Chairman Wilson were both shocked. After confirming that Sue, E wasn't joking with these numbers, Chairman Runst immediately decided that the Walmart Chamber of Commerce would invest in building roads. Based on his expression, it wasn't hard to guess that the Walmart Chamber of Commerce wouldn't just build roads. Hey, Sue, E, answer me, why don't you agree? I feel that this suggestion isn't bad. Seeing that Sue, E was deep in thought and didn't reply for a while, Steele couldn't help urging him. This is too troublesome to explain, and this matter can't be decided by me alone. At least I have to return to Banta City and discuss this with Chairman Rank, so I just told Chairman Runst that I would consider it. Sue, E simply replied before quickly changing the topic and asking, "Don't just ask me, I want to ask you. Didn't His Excellency Great Magician say that he would bring me to a meeting of the Sorcerers Guild today? Why is it that now that I'm here, he isn't here?" "Oh, someone from the Sorcerers Guild came looking for Grandfather, and Grandfather went out with him," Steele replied. "Then he didn't leave any instructions? For example, did he want me to wait for him here?" Sue, E asked. Steele shook her head. "Grandfather didn't say anything. He seemed to be in a rush. I don't know what happened." "Left in a rush?" Sue, he was a bit confused. This old man just came from Banta City a few days ago. What kind of urgent matter could the Sorcerers Guild have that he has to take care of? "I don't know." Steele shrugged his shoulders. Steele gave a shrug. Grandfather is a great magician after all, so if something big happened in the Sorcerers Guild, since he was in Anvilmar City, he would definitely be notified. Sue, E thought for a bit and found that there was too little information. He couldn't make a judgment at all, so he could only give up. "Then what do we do now? I've already reserved some time this morning, but now that His Excellency Great Magician is busy, I'm free." Sue, he spread his hands. "Isn't that good?" Steele took Sue Yi's arm with a smile and pulled him out the door. "It's rare for us to come to Anvilmar City together, and we have free time, so if we don't go out for a stroll, it would be a waste. Let's go. I'll take you around Anvilmar City. I've heard Viscount Leslie say that when you came here last year, you were always busy with various things and didn't have time to stroll. Really, it's hard enough to come here, and you don't have time to play. You really are too pitiful. Today, let this lady bring you to enjoy the scenery of Anvilmar City." Suki didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he was pulled out by Steele. Because today was the first day of the Magicians' Union certification exam, the magicians who participated in the exam all went to the exam site outside the city. Even the magicians who didn't participate in the exam mostly went to watch the fun, so the city wasn't like yesterday where magicians were everywhere. It was relatively quieter in comparison. Of course, as the capital of the Lampari Kingdom, Anvilmar City was always very lively. No matter where the two of them went, there would be waves of people. Steele had studied at the Lampuri Royal Academy for 4 years and had stayed in Anvilmar City for 4 years, so she was very familiar with this place. Under her lead, the two of them tried their best to avoid the most crowded places. They walked back and forth through the streets and alleys of Anvilmar City. Sometimes, they would enter a small shop by the side of the road and pick up the unique plushies and comment on them. Sometimes, they would rest by the banks of the Rhine River that passed through the city while admiring the falling red leaves. Sometimes, they would pull an artist from a street stall and have him draw a portrait of the two of them. Seeing that Steele was having fun, he let go of all his random thoughts and happily walked around the city with Steele. For a while, it was like he had returned to when he was young on Earth and was dragged out to go shopping by his female colleagues. After the two of them walked around the city, he suddenly mentioned to Steele that he wanted to take a look at the Lampuri Royal Academy that she was studying at. Steele thought about it. "I think that you're not going to visit the academy. Rather, you're going to see the students studying magic there, right? Tell me honestly, are you planning to get all the students from the Royal School to work for you in our Chamber of Commerce?" He laughed. "I have this idea, but they are graduates of the best schools in the kingdom, so they won't put our small company in their eyes." "That isn't certain." Steele gave a soft snort. "You see, even a top student like me is still working for you right now, isn't it? Then again, isn't it the same for Evita and the others? Let me tell you, our company treats the researchers so well. I think that not only do the students of Baron Ricto Magic Academy want to work for our company, the students of the Lampuri Royal Academy are the same. Of course, it's good if it's like this. But right now I feel that letting the students work for the company isn't the best choice." He shook his head. "If it's possible, I really want to set up an academy that specializes in teaching mages theoretical knowledge related to magic machines. Only mages who graduate from such an academy can be considered as truly useful magic engineering engineers. Just do it if you want to," Steele said with a relaxed look. "Anyway, you're not lacking in money right now, and with the support of the Lord City Lord and Her Highness, there shouldn't be a problem with the procedures. At worst, I'll just give grandfather a position in the school, and it'll attract more people to study at the school." "And that's right. Now that you've said it, I really feel that this idea is feasible. All right, when I go back this time, I'll discuss this matter with the Lord City Lord. As for now, let's take a look at the Lampuri Royal Academy first. I'm very curious. How did they train such an outstanding girl like Steele?" "Humph, I'm a natural beauty. I don't need to be trained at all." Steele gave a snort. She pulled Su Yi's hand and was about to head in the direction of the Lampuri Royal Academy when she suddenly stopped. Su Yi was a bit surprised. He pulled Steele, who wasn't moving, and saw that she was looking at the road in a daze like she was stunned. Su Yi followed her gaze and saw a young man and woman standing on the other side of the road. That young man was looking right at Steele with eyes filled with shock and greed. Chapter 246. The leisurely morning passed by quickly. This time, He had a lot of things to do in Anvilmar City. Naturally, he didn't have as much free time as he did this morning. After eating lunch with Stills, Yi and the people sent by the military came to the military training grounds not far from the northwest outskirts of Anvilmar City. Actually, the military had long wanted Yi to come, but Yi had always been busy and couldn't find the time to come to Anvilmar City. Now that Yi was finally here, the military naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. They had already arranged a time with Yi. When Yi entered the training grounds after going through a strict inspection, he immediately saw a familiar person. Of course, it was Major Matt Conley. When he saw Yi, Major Matt Conley immediately welcomed him with a smile. "Hey, Chairman you're finally willing to come. I'm really happy." He shook his head with a smile. "Major Matt Conley, you're still so polite. Actually, I've long wanted to come here and take a look. Now that I have the chance, of course I wouldn't miss it." The two exchanged some pleasantries, and Major Matt Conley introduced Yi to a few other people in the training grounds. Other than the military officers, there were also a few instructors in the training grounds and 20 normal soldiers. After seeing Yi, These people treated Sue very warmly. Even if it was the first time they met, they already treated him as a good friend. Sue was a bit confused. Why were these people so warmly treating him? It had to be known that he was only a normal merchant and shouldn't be treated like a soldier. The problem is, Chairman Sue, you're not a normal merchant. Matt Conley laughed loudly. Other merchants with gold in their heads would indeed be looked down upon by us rough soldiers. But you're different. Because of you and your new flyer, our brothers can finally have a full set of equipment. When we're on the battlefield, whether it's killing or survival, it greatly increases. Tell me, why wouldn't we treat you warmly? Exactly. In the past, we from the logistics department were always worried about our brother's equipment. But because we didn't have enough money, we couldn't solve the problem. In the end, Chairman Sue made a move and easily solved the biggest problem. Tell me, how can we not treat you as a brother? Another officer from the logistics department said with a smile. Oh, I don't think I'm that capable, right? He actually solved such a big problem? Sue, he said in surprise. Chairman Sue, you don't know how poor the logistics department used to be. Let me tell you, before this, in the entire kingdom's army, only the Northern Army that went all out against those bastards from the Sack Kingdom had a complete set of equipment. The brothers in the other armies might not even have a complete set of armor with 5 people. As for weapons, do you believe it? Some of the brothers in the Leica Corps were even using big iron swords that had been used for more than 5 years. Now, because the big iron sword is always rusting and constantly being ground, it is almost becoming a short sword. It can't be that bad, right? So he was a bit shocked. If the equipment of the Lampari Kingdom's army was really as bad as they said, the battle strength of the kingdom's army would be too worrying. If they really fought a battle, they would be routed if they met a slightly more elite enemy. Who says it isn't? When it came to fighting, it was like these officers had opened their mouths and began to talk nonstop. A group of people gathered together and kept complaining to Sue. Then there was an officer who said that there was a conflict with an enemy, and because their equipment wasn't good, their 3,000 people couldn't beat 2,000 people. Not only did they lose the battle, they lost over 1,000 people and were cursed by the nobles in the kingdom's parliament, calling them trash. Then there was another officer who said that when he was on the front lines, he was attacked by an enemy. He woke up from a dream and reached his hand to the side out of habit, but he could only feel an iron rod. So because he didn't have enough weapons, he could only find an iron rod to use as a weapon. Then there was another officer who said, hearing the various pitiful situations of these officers, Sue, he couldn't help feeling a bit sad, but he also felt it was very strange. Since our kingdom's army is this lacking, why hasn't the Sack Kingdom invaded us yet? Nonsense, of course it's because our brothers are going all out. An officer angrily said, those nobles are cursing this trash and that trash, but they don't know that our brothers are going all out on the front lines. If our equipment isn't good, our brothers will use their bodies to resist. In short, we won't let those grandsons of the Sack Kingdom charge in. But still a tough fight. Major Matt Conley sighed. Major Matt Conley said with a sigh, the Northern Army's casualties are no less than 5,000 each year. I suspect that if this continues, the Northern Army will be crippled. When that time comes, who will be able to resist those fellows from the Sack Kingdom? The officers looked at each other in blank dismay. After a while, an officer spat out, Bah, let those nobles do it. Of course everyone knew that he was talking. After a bit of silence, Major Matt Conley said with a forced smile, all right, let's not talk about these disappointing things. Today is Chairman Sue's first time here. We can't just let him listen to our complaints, right? Then again, Chairman Sue has already helped us solve the problem of armaments. I believe that everyone has seen the 50,000 sets of armor and weapons that were sent over, right? Let me tell you, for these 50,000 sets of armor and weapons, Chairman Sue only asked me for less than 500,000 gold coins. Only 500,000 gold coins. The officers looked at Sue in surprise, and one of them couldn't help asking, Chairman Sue, doesn't your new flyer have too much money? If you buy this set of armor and weapons from the Joel family, it would cost at least 30 gold coins. 50,000 sets would cost at least 1.5 million gold coins. That's right. Not only will you not earn money like this, You might even lose money, right? Although we soldiers don't like merchants who only like money, we know that you want to earn money. I'm afraid this isn't good, right? He looked at the doubtful faces in front of him and thought that perhaps some of these officers weren't from the logistics department, so they didn't understand the situation. However, Major Matt Conley was well aware of the situation. Could it be that he never explained it to these officers? If that was the case, then why were these officers here today? Seeing Suyi's doubtful gaze, Major Matt Conley clapped his hands to attract the attention of the officers and said loudly, "All right, brothers, I don't think you really care about whether Chairman Su makes money or not, and there's no need for you to care about this issue. The reason why I invited Chairman Su here today is because I have some technical questions to ask him. You have to hurry. Chairman Su is very busy. If you miss this opportunity, I'm afraid you won't have another chance in the future." The officers all showed expressions of realization and scattered. A moment later, each of them pulled a soldier who was training on the training ground over. "Chairman Su, look, he's wearing one of the sets of armor that your Chamber of Commerce sent last time. I think we should make some changes to the back. It would be great if we could make the spacer thicker. Chairman Su, this is also the armor that your Chamber of Commerce sent. I think it's best to leave some moving joints here so that our brothers can wield their weapons more easily. Chairman Su, look at this. This is the spear that your Chamber of Commerce sent. I think that although this spear is very sharp and sturdy, it's a bit too light. I heard that your Chamber of Commerce used some kind of alloy. Although it's very good, many of our brothers aren't used to it. Also, the impact force isn't enough, so the power isn't perfect. Can you make some changes?" Chairman Su Yi's gaze swept over the soldiers one by one. He listened to the various opinions of these officers and wrote them all down in the small notebook he carried with him. Then, he had Major Matt Conley bring a ruler and other measuring tools to record the various parameters. The officers all left satisfied after they received answers from Su Yi that they could make the necessary changes. Then, under Matt Conley's organization, the officers led the 20 soldiers to practice a small-scale encounter in front of Su Yi. This was so that Su Yi could observe something and make some changes to the equipment. Su Yi watched the drill from the side for a bit before suddenly asking Major Matt Conley beside him in a small voice, "This kind of technical problem, I can just send a few technicians from the company to take care of it. Why do you need me to come?" Major Matt Conley maintained a smile on his face and answered in a seemingly casual manner. "Our brothers heard that your new flyer alone can solve the equipment problem that has troubled us for so many years. They were very curious about you as the chairman and want to see you." "Just to see me?" He asked again. "You know that we soldiers are all straightforward people. If you can help everyone, then everyone will support you. Your Frestec Chamber of Commerce's help has saved many of our brothers from dying, so naturally everyone treats you as their closest brother. We asked you to come because we want you to interact with everyone and get to know them. This way, it will be more convenient for you to do whatever you want in the future." He was silent for a while. Then he said softly, "I don't want to do anything. I just want to honestly open a Chamber of Commerce and do business." Major Matt Conley tilted his head to look at Su Yi. The smile on his face seemed to contain a deeper meaning. "Chairman Su, whether you like it or not, there are some things that you have already done." Chapter 247. Although Su Yi wasn't willing, he had to admit that Major Matt Conley was right. Since there were some things that he had already done and the people who should know knew about it, if he acted like it wasn't related to him and wanted to stay out of it, it wouldn't help at all. Not to mention that he still had to do the things that he should do. Major Matt Conley had specially invited him this time. Of course, it wasn't to have him solve these technical problems, because just like Su Yi said, he only needed to send a few technicians to solve these technical problems. Naturally, it wasn't to remind or even warn Su Yi, because if he really wanted to do this, it was better for the two of them to have a private chat. Other than these things, the most important thing was for Su Yi to represent New Flyer in reaching some agreements with the Army headquarters. First was to take care of the procedures for transferring the slaves to 70. Like this, the technicians that Su Yi had specially chosen from his slaves would belong to 70. It could also be said that the technical backbone of the factory was firmly in 70's hands. Then Major Mac Conley represented the Army headquarters to place another order with the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. This order included a new production line for weapons and armor, as well as over 100,000 tires. There were also some special magic machines that the Logistics Department had requested from New Flyer. The Logistics Department didn't request that New Flyer could deliver these special magic machines in a short period of time. Strictly speaking, this was just a research order, hoping that New Flyer could develop the corresponding magic machines to satisfy the requests of the Army Headquarters Logistics Department. New Flyer was very experienced in this because the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, the Fulcao Chamber of Commerce, and the Armani Chamber of Commerce had all made similar requests to New Flyer. The only difference was that the requests of the Army Headquarters Logistics Department were a bit more special. For example, Major Mac Conley wanted to obtain a magic trebuchet to replace the heavy trebuchets that the Army was currently using. As soon as Sue-E heard this request, he thought of several alternatives in his mind. As long as he went back to the magic research facility in Camby's group to do some research, they would be able to make a better substitute. So he signed these agreements with Major Mac Conley with great alacrity. Major Mac Conley saw that Sue-E agreed so quickly and was very confident, so naturally he was very happy. New Flyer signing these contracts would be of great help to the Logistics Department, because although the things that New Flyer made were all expensive compared to the 30 gold coins that the Logistics Department had to spend to buy a set of armor from the Joel family, it was without a doubt much cheaper. The most important thing was that working with New Flyer would allow the Logistics Department to not only satisfy the basic equipment requirements of the frontline army, they would also be able to increase the quality of the equipment, greatly increasing the battle strength of the soldiers. If it wasn't for the fact that Major Mac Conley didn't have enough authority, he would have kicked away the Joel family, the exclusive equipment supplier of the Army headquarters, and fully cooperate with New Flyer. For New Flyer and Sue-E, signing these contracts would allow them to earn a large amount of profit. Even if Sue-E gave a bit of a discount because of the support he gave to the Army headquarters in 70, just the order of 100,000 tires would allow New Flyer to earn a large profit of over 200,000 gold coins. If the other orders were added in, New Flyer's final profit from this order would be over 300,000 gold coins. Other than the direct monetary benefits, providing equipment to the Army headquarters and becoming a supplier to the Army headquarters would help stabilize New Flyer's position in the kingdom. The reason why the Joel family was able to become one of the top families in the kingdom was not only because they controlled the iron or business in the kingdom, but also because they had a monopoly on the supply of iron or to the military. In this way, it was equivalent to controlling the lifeline of the kingdom. Of course, New Flyer had now taken a step in, which was equal to stealing food from the tiger's mouth, so it would cause a backlash from the Joel family. But this was already within Sue-Ye's expectations. Meeting with the Joel family was something that Sue-Ye had already planned to do before coming to Anvilmar City, so he told Vincent that he would be paying them a visit. But before this, Sue-Ye had another matter to decide. Sue-Ye returned from the training ground to the courtyard that Count had arranged for Great Magician Camilla, Steele, and Sue-Ye to live in. Great Magician Camilla, who had left early in the morning, finally came back not long after Sue-Ye came back. When he saw Sue-Ye, he immediately asked, "Brat, what is your current magic level?" Sue-Ye was stunned. "Your Excellency, Great Magician, didn't you ask me this a month ago?" "Nonsense. Of course I remember you telling me a month ago that you were close to the strength of a magus of the 7th rank. What I want to ask you is, now that a month has passed, do you already have the strength of a magus of the 7th rank? You really think highly of me. But you're right, I think I do indeed have the strength of a 7th grade magician." Sue-Ye replied with a smile. "Good." Great Magician Camilla nodded and revealed a smile of praise. "Since it's like this, you should free up the day after tomorrow and prepare to take the 7th grade magician certification exam." Sue-Ye and Steele on the side were both stunned. Steele couldn't help asking, "Grandfather, the 7th grade magician certification exam requires him to go to Sky City. This place is over 1,000 kilometers away from Sky City. How do you want Sue E to arrive the day after tomorrow? You think I don't know? Great magician Camilla glared at Steele. Let me tell you, I just received a notice today saying that those fellows at the Sorcerer's Guild have finally decided to change their mind. From this year onwards, not only will the 5th grade magician certification exam and below be held in our country, the 5th grade magician certification exam and below will also be held in our country. So, Sue E, your strength has reached the 7th grade magician this year, so you can take the exam in Anvil City. Sue E and Steele were stunned again. Steele's beautiful brows slightly knit. Since the Sorcerer's Guild has decided to do this, why didn't they notify us earlier? It's starting the day after tomorrow. How could they notify all the 6th to 9th grade magicians in just 2 days? Even if they did, how could they rush over this quickly? Who told those fellows at the guild to be so shameful? Great magician Camilla gave a cold snort and waved his hand as he said, "But you don't need to worry too much about this problem. The reason why the certification exam is a month later than before is because those fellows at the guild have been considering this matter the entire time, so they leaked the news a long time ago. The Sorcerer's Guild of each country should have notified their 6th to 9th grade magicians ahead of time. Our Lampari Kingdom is the same." Grandfather, you mean that there are still many 6th to 9th grade magicians in Anvil City? Steele asked. I've seen quite a few familiar faces in the city in the past 2 days. Great magician Camilla said with a nod. Then again, after the 5th grade, it is very hard for any magician to increase their rank in a single year. Adding in the fact that there are very few 6th to 9th grade magicians. There are even fewer people who need to participate in the exam, so there aren't many people who receive the notice ahead of time. Grandfather, did you forget about Sue E? He was only a 5th grade magician last year, and he's already a 7th grade magician this year. Steele pointed at Sue E with a proud look, like she was the one whose strength had increased by leaps and bounds. Great magician Camilla looked at Sue E and gave a strong snort. I already said that this fellow was a genius, but it's a pity that he wasn't willing to properly study magic. Otherwise, he would have become a great magician in just 10 years. Sue E rubbed his nose and said with an awkward smile, "Your Excellency, great magician, we already said that we wouldn't talk about this problem in the future. Then again, even if I studied magic all day like you said, my strength wouldn't increase as fast as it is now. After all, there is no shortcut to increasing one's magic power." Great magician Camilla gave another snort, but he didn't pursue this topic. "Kid, it's up to you if you don't want to focus on studying magic, but you have to participate in the exam. Most of the people participating in the exam are 6th to 9th grade magicians of the kingdom. When you participate in the exam, you can get to know these magicians. If you can pull a few people into the Academy of Magic, the work of the Research Institute will be much easier in the future." Sutmi nodded in agreement, but then he felt it was a bit funny. Last year at this time, great magician Camilla still hated combining magic and business. Now that he had changed his mind, not only did he join the Academy of Magic, he even took the initiative to come up with a plan to have Sue E pull other magicians into the Academy of Magic. This contrast before and after was just too big. A thought suddenly flashed in his mind, and Sue E asked, "That's right, Your Excellency, great magician. The guild will send higher-level magicians to take the exam for 5th grade magicians and below, but the exam for 6th to 9th grade magicians is very hard to do, right? How could the guild have that many higher-level magicians? Especially the exam for 9th grade magicians, the only ones higher than that are great magicians." That's right. So, according to the rules, there will be great magicians present for the exam for 6th to 9th grade magicians. Because there was a meeting this year, all of us old fellows were called here, and this is the first year the system was changed. So for this year's exam, the 5 great magicians of the Lampari Kingdom, including me, will all be present. Great magician Camilla replied. Sue Yi's eyes instantly lit up. That means you will also be in charge of the exam? Then Your Excellency, great magician, since you already know my magic level, how about you make it convenient and give me a spot? Great magician Camilla coldly looked at Sue E. What do you think? Chapter 248. Because the first day of the Sorcerer's Guild certification exam was to assess the qualifications of a novice mage. Many trainee mages who wanted to officially become a mage would come to take the exam. Naturally, the number of people would be the highest. Therefore, compared to the first day, the number of people taking the second day's exam was relatively smaller. Of course, it wasn't that small. According to the statistics of the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild, there were close to 2,000 novice mages in the Lampari Kingdom. Therefore, every year, there would be over 1,000 mages who felt that they were strong enough to pass the exam. When Sue, E, and Steele arrived at the exam site outside the city, they saw an extremely noisy scene. With their current strength, of course, they weren't here to take the exam. Instead, they were here to cheer on the mages in New Flyer who were taking the exam. New Flyer had currently recruited close to 300 mages to work for the Chamber of Commerce. Apart from the 46 researchers from the Academy of Magic, the rest were mages of level 3 and below. They were all in charge of drawing magic formations in the New Flyer's factory. The mages who were willing to enter the factory to do this kind of simple work were either not very talented and couldn't raise their magical strength to a high level, or they were from poor families and didn't have the financial resources to support them in increasing their magical strength. Therefore, in reality, their strength wouldn't increase too quickly in a year. But for every mage, even if they knew that their strength didn't meet the requirements, they would still think of ways to participate in the certification exam every year. Apart from hoping that they could pass the exam by luck, they could also use the exam to come into contact with more of their peers and experience the atmosphere of a large number of mages gathering together. For many mages, the annual certification exam was even more like a grand event for mages. So when Sue E gave the researchers of the Academy of Magic a vacation, he also gave the mages in the factory a 7-day vacation, allowing them to participate in the certification exam. Although there were too many mages, and no matter how generous Sue E was, he couldn't afford the high cost of all these people staying at the Sheldon Inn. So he only gave each of them 20 gold coins and provided them with a ticket to Anvilmar City and Banta City from the First and Carriage Company. Even like this, he still received the heartfelt gratitude of these mages. It had to be known, for many low-level mages who couldn't rely on their status as mages to earn money, just a trip to Anvilmar City each year wasn't a small expense. Now, not only did the New Flyer give them their wages during their vacation, they even gave them additional benefits. This welfare policy was just too good. So even if Sue E didn't say anything, when these mages saw their former companions or mages they didn't know come to talk to them, they couldn't help proudly bragging about the special benefits they received from working at the New Flyer. When Sue E and Steele appeared at the exam site, the mages of the New Flyer immediately noticed them. In a short period of time, this news spread through the exam site. Sue E and Steele instantly noticed that all the mages in the exam site were looking at them. The two of them were already used to these gazes. Sue E revealed a smile and said to Steele, "Steele, your charm really is big. Look, even these mages who spend most of their time immersed in studying magic can't help but be attracted to you." Steele shook her head and said doubtfully, "That's not right. Why do I feel like they're all looking at you?" "Looking at me? What's there to look at?" Sue E shrugged and glanced at the mages of the New Flyer closest to him. Just as he was about to raise his hand to greet them, he suddenly noticed a familiar figure squeezing out from the crowd. Sue E was startled for a moment before he hurriedly went up and asked with a smile, "Hey, Erwin, I thought you would be participating in tomorrow's exam. Why are you here today?" This familiar figure was Sue Yi's old classmate at the Sennheiser Academy, Erwin. Last year, when Sue E came to Anvilmar City to participate in the certification exam, he just happened to bump into him. At that time, Erwin and Sue E had participated in the primary exam and were very confident that they could pass the second-level exam in one go. But in the end, they didn't pass. Sue E had thought that after a year of training, his magic power would surpass that of a second-level mage, and even reach the level of a third-level mage. That was why he asked this question. Erwin had revealed a happy smile when he saw Sue E, but after hearing this question, he waved his hand dispiritedly. "Don't mention it. Last year, I also thought that I could reach the level of a third-level mage this year." Who would have thought that I would go on so many adventures this year? But all I did was go on adventures and didn't have the time to study magic. Now, apart from having a bit more combat experience, my magic power hasn't improved by much compared to last year. Sigh. It would be good if I could pass the second level exam this year. How would I dare to think about passing the third level exam? Sui was a bit surprised. Although Erwin's magic talent wasn't as good as his, it was still quite good in the Sennheiser Academy. According to normal standards, after a year of growth, his power should have increased greatly. How could the increase be so small? Erwin cursed and snorted coldly. I was fooled by those adventure novels. The novels say that as long as you go on adventures and participate in more battles, you will quickly improve your understanding of magic and increase your power. Bullshit. My understanding of magic has indeed improved this year, but I don't have the time or money to study magic. How can my magic power increase so quickly? Hearing this, Sui was a bit speechless. In fact, he used to have the same thoughts as Erwin. If it weren't for the idea of developing magic machines and starting a new flyer, he probably would have chosen this path in the end. Forget it. Let's not talk about these depressing things. This should be Miss Steele, right? The one the newspapers said is Sui, your current girlfriend? Erwin's gaze fell on Steele, who was beside Sui, and his eyes couldn't help but shine with amazement. Steele smiled and made an elegant lady salute to Erwin. Yes, I am Steele. Hello, Erwin. I often hear Sui mention his classmates at the Sennheiser Academy, and you are the one he mentions the most. I'm very happy to meet you. I'm also very happy to meet you. Erwin looked at Steele again, and suddenly strangled Sui's neck, shouting in a low voice, You bastard! I haven't seen you for a year, and you found such a beautiful girlfriend. Believe it or not, if Roy and the others find out, they'll go crazy with jealousy. Sui laughed and broke free from Erwin's arms. This is my good luck. You can't compare even if you want to. Erwin rolled his eyes at Sui and suddenly sighed softly. It's indeed your good luck to find such a beautiful girlfriend like Miss Steele, but opening new flyer isn't luck, is it? When you were at the academy, you liked to play with those strange things. I didn't expect you to open such a big chamber of commerce with those things. Even when I'm out adventuring, I often hear the name New Flyer. Sui, you really struck it rich. It's all right. Sui smiled modestly. Seeing Erwin's somewhat complicated expression, he was moved and asked, Erwin, since you said that adventuring is too hard and it doesn't help you much in improving your magic power, why don't you just come work for our Chamber of Commerce? You see, Rooney's salary is more than 20 gold coins a month, and his magic power hasn't fallen behind at all. If you come, I think it'll be much better than you adventuring, right? I know. Rooney told me when I saw him just now. Erwin sighed again. You're right. Working for New Flyer is a good choice, but I found that although I know it's not worth it and it's not safe, I still want to take risks. I think I've fallen in love with the life of adventure, and I don't like a peaceful and comfortable life anymore. Are you serious? Sui asked. Yes, I'm serious. Erwin nodded. Seeing Erwin's determined look, Sui could only helplessly nod and say, All right, to each his own. I won't force you. But Erwin, I'll leave a position for you in our Chamber of Commerce. If you ever feel tired of adventuring, you can come find me at any time. Erwin laughed loudly and patted Sui's shoulder hard. He turned to Steele and said, You see, Miss Steele, Sui is a guy who likes to think for others, so we all admire him in the academy. You're very beautiful, and Sui is lucky to have a girlfriend like you. But I also want to tell you that you're lucky to have a guy like Sui as your boyfriend. Erwin's tone was a bit impolite, but Steele didn't mind. Instead, she revealed a sweet smile and nodded. Thank you for the reminder, but I'm very clear about this. Haha, that's good. Erwin laughed again. He turned to look at the surrounding magicians, then suddenly lowered his voice and said to Sui, if you want to recruit more magicians to work for your Chamber of Commerce, this is a great opportunity. Let me tell you, a lot of people have heard a lot about New Flyer from the magicians of your Chamber of Commerce. I think a lot of people are very interested. Try it out like last year. I think a lot of people will agree to join New Flyer. Sui smiled and nodded. All right, thank you for the reminder. Chapter 249. Erwin's reminder came from good intentions, but he didn't know that the current new flyer was completely different from the new flyer from last year. When Sue-E came last year, the new flyer had just started, and even in Banna City, they were only a bit famous. As for Anvilmar City, no one had heard of them at all. So Sue-E had to personally talk to the magicians participating in the exam and invite them to work for the new flyer with the most sincere attitude. Even like this, Sue-E had met countless cold faces. However, after a year, the new flyer had created a stir in the magician circle of the Lampari Kingdom because of great magician Camilla joining. Because of this, their fame had increased, and many magicians had rushed over. Sue-E even had to reject a portion of the magicians who wanted to work for the new flyer before, because there were too many of them. Moreover, with the introduction of the magicians working for the new flyer, the other magicians all knew that the treatment given by the new flyer was very good. Moreover, working for the new flyer, because they were exposed to those new magic arrays all day and were required to learn how to set them up, it was actually very helpful for increasing one's magic power. So for many magicians, especially these low-grade magicians, working for the new flyer was already a very attractive choice. So Sue didn't need to take the initiative to look for them. These magicians had already come to his door. Erwin had just ended his conversation with Sue-E when some magicians who couldn't hold back came to find Sue-E. Whether it was asking in a roundabout way or directly asking, they all had the same meaning, which was that they were very willing to work for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Sue-E didn't immediately agree, but he welcomed them on behalf of the new flyer. Although most of the magicians present didn't have a chance of becoming a great magician, Sue-E needed the Lampari Kingdom's magicians to reach a consensus. That was that going to the new flyer to study magic machines was a very good choice, which was equal to giving these magicians a new path. After a simple meeting, since the exam had officially begun, Sue-E and Steele left and went their separate ways. Steele was going to attend the jewelry exhibition held by the Serene Chamber of Commerce as the representative, and Sue-E was going to Great Magician Eisenkel's Magic Tower. This was Sue-Yi's first time coming to Great Magician Eisenkel's Magic Tower. Compared to Great Magician Camilla's Magic Tower, this Great Magician Eisenkel's Magic Tower couldn't be described as a tower. Rather, it was just a name. This was because Grand Magus Eisenkel's Magus Tower was actually a manor that took up over 5,000 square meters of land in the southern suburbs of Anvilmar City. Apart from the Magus Tower in the center of the manor, there were all sorts of other buildings scattered all over the place, surrounding and protecting the Magus Tower. Just based on this, it could be seen that Great Magician Eisenkel really was worthy of being called the richest magician in the Lampari Kingdom. When Sue-E came, Great Magician Eisenkel immediately came out to greet him. He was even more enthusiastic than when he went to Banna City to see Sue-E. "Chairman Sue, it really is rare for you to come. Come, let me show you around. I think that you'll have many chances to come here in the future." Great Magician Eisenkel warmly led Sue-E in and showed him around the manor. Sue-E was a bit surprised by Great Magician Eisenkel's enthusiastic attitude, because although they had agreed to cooperate last time, Sue-E didn't give him some of the new flyer's unique technology according to Great Magician Eisenkel's wishes, so the cooperation between them could only be considered shallow. New Flyer had given Great Magician Eisenkel some magic array research tasks to Great Magician Eisenkel's Magic Tower. So they had given Great Magician Eisenkel over 3,000 gold coins a year. But this bit of money was just a drop in the bucket for the current new flyer. So it wasn't something that Great Magician Eisenkel cared about. So Sue thought that even if Great Magician Eisenkel invited him this time, it would just be a formality. He never thought that he would have this kind of attitude. It was like they were really close partners. "Look, Chairman Sue, this is the Magic Array Research Center that I specially set aside for our cooperation." While Sue was thinking about this question, Great Magician Eisenkel had already brought him to a courtyard that was made of 6 two-story buildings. Hearing Great Magician Eisenkel's introduction, Sue looked at the small courtyard in front of him. He felt that this small courtyard was a bit similar to the new Flyers Academy of Magic, but he didn't know if the research power here was as strong as the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. Right now, there are 24th to 7th grade magicians researching magic arrays. Adding in the fact that I often come here to do some research, even if it's a bit lacking compared to your New Flyers Academy of Magic, it shouldn't be too far off. Great Magician Eisenkel said to Sue E. with a bit of pride. Sue E. secretly shook his head in his heart. Not to mention the large difference in the number of magicians here compared to the New Flyers Academy of Magic. Just the fact that Great Magician Camilla decided to focus on researching magic machines and Great Magician Eisenkel only came here occasionally was enough to pull the difference between the two to a very large degree. New Flyer and Great Magician Eisenkel's cooperation was in this area. So when they arrived here, Great Magician Eisenkel didn't bring Sue E. to any other place in the manor. He brought Sue E. around the small buildings to take a look before coming to the magic tower in the center of the manor. Taking a closer look, one would discover that this magic tower was 13 stories tall, almost double the height of Great Mage Camilla's 7 stories tall. Moreover, the ground floor area was more than double that of Great Mage Camilla's. This was enough to show the difference in wealth between the two great magicians. However, the two magic towers were roughly the same, and the top floor was the private space of the two great magicians. After Great Magician Eisenkel led Sue E. to the top floor, he waved his hand for the other followers to leave. Then he personally poured a cup of tea for Sue E. before sitting down, looking like he was going to have a discussion with Sue E. After a few words, Sue E. asked about the progress of the research. The initial cooperation between the two was with New Flyer providing the funds and Great Magician Eisenkel organizing the people to complete the research. The task that Sue E. gave Great Magician Eisenkel before was to stabilize the output of magic arrays, as well as how to maintain the integrity of the magic arrays on the magic machines. After half a year of research, there had been a breakthrough in these two topics, and they had already reached Sue Yi's requirements. However, after Great Magician Eisenkel introduced the current progress of these two topics, he said something that was worth thinking about. According to the original agreement, I can give these two research results to New Flyer, but I can also choose to pay the penalty and give these two technologies to other companies. Chairman Sue, there are many companies that are interested in these two technologies and have promised to pay the penalty and buy them at high price. Sue revealed a faint smile, thinking that he didn't know if Great Magician Eisenkel was reminding him or warning him. Of course, this is Your Excellency, Great Magician's freedom. However, I think that since you took the initiative to cooperate with our New Flyer, you shouldn't be planning on breaking this cooperation, right? Otherwise, with your wealth, you wouldn't need us to pay for the research. That's right, Great Magician Eisenkel said with a nod. Compared to the other companies in the kingdom that aren't mature in terms of magic machine research, of course I hope to cooperate with New Flyer. So, Chairman Sue, as long as you agree to my conditions, I think that not only will I give you these two research results, I will also continue to help you with your research. Sue didn't reveal a surprised expression. I ask Your Excellency, Great Magician, to state your conditions. According to my initial plan, both sides would share the developed technology. Then, as long as the Chamber of Commerce used these two technologies, they would have to pay the patent fees for these two technologies. However, whether it is the Kingdom or the Sorcerer's Guild, they haven't passed the patent law yet. So after some consideration, I feel that it's better to use your company's previous method to deal with these two technologies. Great Magician Eisenkel said, Our company's method? Sue thought for a bit. Is it to directly sell the technology and then collect the corresponding fees? That's right. I feel that this method is very good. Right now, these two technologies belong to us, so the profits from selling the technology also belong to both of us. What do you think, Chairman Sue? Sue thought for a bit before asking. There are two questions. How should we calculate the proportion of our shares? Also, our New Flyer's magic machines will also use these two technologies, so how should we calculate it? Because New Flyer is paying for these two technologies, and I'm providing the manpower, I feel that 50-50 is a reasonable choice. As for the Frestech Chamber of Commerce using these two pieces of technology, Chairman Su, I think that your Frestech Chamber of Commerce will also need to spend money to buy these two pieces of technology, but will split 50-50ths. In other words, if our new flyer wants to use these two technologies, we will still have to pay you the corresponding fees. Sui asked. Yes. Sui thought for a bit before shaking his head. I don't agree. If we sell these two technologies to other companies, then I agree with Your Excellency, Great Magician's method of distribution. But if our new flyer uses these two technologies, then I hope that we won't be affected. Great Magician Eisenkel didn't think that Sui would reject him so directly, so he slightly knit his brows. Chairman Sui, although your new flyer has invested in these two technologies, the magicians under me and I have also put in a lot of effort. If it's like you said, and your new flyer doesn't need to pay any fees for using these two technologies, then we will lose a large amount of income. Do you think this is fair? This has nothing to do with fairness. I just don't want our company's magic machines to be restricted like this. Or to put it bluntly, I don't like it. Sui directly said. Great Magician Eisenkel knit his brows even tighter. Chairman Sui, I hope that you won't let your personal preferences affect your judgment. As I said earlier, I can pay the liquidated damages to your Chamber of Commerce according to the agreement, and then take these two technologies as my own. If your company wants to use these two technologies in the future, you'll have to buy them from me. Sui revealed a faint smile and relaxed his body. He leaned back in his chair and spread his hands, saying with a relaxed expression, If Your Excellency, Great Magician has decided to do this, then please do so. Great Magician Eisenkel's expression changed slightly. Chapter 250. The discussion with Great Magician Eisenkel didn't reach a final result, because whether it was Sui or Great Magician Eisenkel, they both insisted on their conditions, so the discussion reached a deadlock in the end. But of course the two wouldn't act like two children. Seeing that they couldn't reach an agreement for now, they put this topic to the side for now. This time Great Magician Eisenkel had invited Sui here, other than to discuss the patent. There was also a very important discussion. It was that he hoped that new flyer could set up a household magic machine factory outside Anvilmar City with him. Sui immediately agreed to this proposal, and after discussing it with Great Magician Eisenkel, they reached a preliminary agreement. According to this agreement, New Flyer and Great Magician Eisenkel would each provide 300,000 gold coins as startup capital for this household magic machine factory. Then New Flyer would provide a set of production equipment and the corresponding technical staff, while Great Magician Eisenkel would take care of the land and other procedures. Compared to the deadlock in terms of technology, this was a cooperation that both sides were happy with. Sui always wanted to find a chance to let New Flyer enter Anvilmar City, so even if he wasn't satisfied with Victor's group of three, he still wanted to cooperate with them. It was to keep a mark of New Flyer in Anvilmar City. Now that Great Magician Eisenkel wanted to cooperate with him to set up a factory here, of course he couldn't ask for more. For Great Magician Eisenkel, what he cared about was more direct, which was money. This household magic machine factory was split 50-50 according to the agreement. According to Great Magician Eisenkel's estimates of the household magic machines in Anvilmar City, once this factory was built, it would earn at least 500,000 gold coins a year. If it was 50%, that would be a large profit of 250,000 gold coins. Even for the richest great magician in the Lampari Kingdom, this was a large profit. Because of this cooperation, when Sui left in the end, Great Magician Eisenkel still had a warm smile on his face. But Sui could see that there was a trace of unwillingness that wasn't hidden in his eyes. Sui was very clear that the reason why Great Magician Eisenkel insisted on using technology and keeping control of the technology was because he knew that for New Flyer, the technology was the most important thing. Only with the technology could he truly meddle in the matters of New Flyer. New Flyer's prospects were very good, so if he could meddle, the benefits in the future would be unimaginably rich. But what Sue-yi hated the most was having to look at other people's faces when it came to the most important thing to him. So he didn't give any room for negotiation at all. As for the threat in Great Magician Eisenkel's words, Sue's because he had Great Magician Eisenkel's. It was like Great Magician Eisenkel said, the only company worth mentioning in the magic machine industry was the Frestech Chamber of Commerce. Even if he sold these two technologies to other companies, they wouldn't be able to use them that well. So even if Great Magician Eisenkel's words were very firm, Sue-yi knew that he didn't have a choice. Moreover, this was the first time the two sides were cooperating, so it could be considered a test between the two sides. Sue-yi had to clearly express his attitude in this test. Otherwise, there would be no end of trouble. When he returned to the yard, he found that Steele and Great Magician Camilla hadn't returned yet. Sue-yi simply laid down on the bed and planned to take this chance to rest. Although he had only been in Anvilmar City for a few days, he had been in contact with different people and negotiating with different people. Every time he came in contact and negotiated, there were many things that needed to be carefully considered. So, Sue-yi had spent more effort than he imagined. Sue-yi actually didn't like to do this kind of thing. Compared to negotiating, he preferred to put his energy into research. But right now, New Flyer didn't have anyone he could trust in this aspect, so he could only take care of it himself. Perhaps after a period of training, Kennard could take over a portion of the work, but because of his identity as a member of the Emma family, Sue-yi still had some misgivings. Lying on the bed thinking, Sue-yi unknowingly fell asleep after a while. Without knowing how long it had been, Sue-yi was suddenly woken up by the sound of footsteps outside his room. When he opened his eyes, he heard the sound of hurried footsteps entering his room. Then he heard Hannah's loud laughter. "Hey, Sue-yi, why are you sleeping in the middle of the day? Get up, it's rare for you to come to Anvilmar City, so I have to properly entertain you." Sue-yi pinched his nose and rubbed his temples. He stood up to look at the excited Hannes and forced out a smile as he said, "I thought that you would come looking for me yesterday. Why did you only come today? I thought that since you just came to Anvilmar City, you must have a lot of things to do, so I might as well give you a day to deal with them. If I came looking for you today, you would definitely have time. See, when I came, I heard Manager Ram say that you were sleeping. That's really strange. You couldn't have been sleeping in from morning until now, right?" Sue-yi felt a bit dizzy from Hannes rambling. He quickly shook his head and glared at him. "Do you think I have that much time to sleep in? I just came back not long ago and had nothing to do for now. Tell me, where are you going to treat me to lunch?" Hannes laughed. "Of course I'm here to treat you to lunch, but it's not me who's treating. Rather, it's someone else." "It's not you?" Sue-yi was stunned. "Then why are you looking for me? Who is so important that they actually sent you here to run errands for them?" "You'll know when you get there." Hannes directly pulled Sue-yi out of bed and pulled him out. Half an hour later, Sue-yi was in the luxurious room of the best Ritz hotel in Anvilmar City. However, this master was completely out of Sue-yi's expectations. Seeing this middle-aged man with a kind smile, Sue-yi thought for a full 2 minutes before remembering. "Mr. Lewis, it's actually you." This master was actually the one who had suddenly asked Sue-yi to order 1,000 magic fans from last year, when Sue-yi had just started selling magic fans with Heinz. That Reeves. Seeing that Sue-yi recognized him, Lewis revealed a faint smile. "It seems like Chairman Sue hasn't forgotten me. Then why have you come to Anvilmar City twice and never thought to see me? I've always wanted to see Chairman Sue again." Sue-yi revealed an awkward smile. He searched around his body and took out a thin piece of golden paper. It was the name letter that Reeves had given him before he left last year. "Look, I've always had this letter with me, but I've been delayed by other matters when I came to Anvilmar City, so I didn't have a chance to visit." Sue-yi explained. Lewis looked at the letter and nodded. "I also know that Chairman Sue is busy, but I'm already very satisfied that you have this kind of intention. Come, let's sit down and talk." Sue-yi didn't immediately sit down. Rather, he looked at the other two people in the room. These two are. The two of them had already stood up with Lewis when Sue-yi came in. When they saw Sue-yi looking at them, the two of them revealed smiles at the same time. The shorter one of them took the initiative to reach his hand out to Sue-yi. "Hello, Chairman Sue. I am Anklo from the Principality of Constantine. Principality of Constantine? Su raised a brow, looking a bit surprised. The Principality of Constantine that borders the Black Rice Wasteland and is on the sea? Anklo laughed. Chairman Su actually understands the geography of the continent this well. That's right. It's the Principality of Constantine that is sandwiched between the beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland and the Merciless Sea. Anklo's tone was full of self-mockery and helplessness. Apart from Su, Lewis, Hannes, and the other person couldn't help revealing a distressed expression. The reason why they revealed such an expression was because Anklo's words were the truth. The Principality of Constantine's territory was very strange. It was like the South American country of Chile on Earth. The entire territory was long, with the Eternal Sea to the west and the Black Rice Wasteland to the north. The other territory formed a curved arc, hugging the Lampari Kingdom. The territory of this principality wasn't small, but because the west was facing the sea, there was no room for development. The east was next to the Lampari Kingdom, which was far more powerful than them. There was also no room for development. In addition, the only way out was blocked by the beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland. As a result, they could only shrink into this piece of land, without any possibility of development. More importantly, the Eternal Sea's temper wasn't good. There was no telling when a hurricane or tsunami would occur. Even for the technologically advanced Earth, natural disasters like hurricanes and tsunamis were almost impossible to defend against, let alone the technologically backward signs. Therefore, almost half of the Principality of Constantine's territory could be attacked by hurricanes and tsunamis at any time. Because of all kinds of natural disasters, it was very difficult for the country to develop. Su had always felt that the living standards of the Lampari Kingdom's commoners were too low, but compared to the majority of the commoners in the Principality of Constantine, it was much better. In the Principality of Constantine, it wasn't easy to survive the hurricanes and tsunamis every year. The introduction of the Principality of Constantine that he had read in some of Samuel Count's books flashed through his mind. Even Su, he couldn't help but show a trace of sympathy. But he immediately realized that this wasn't very polite and quickly turned his gaze to the other person. That person smiled at Su and stretched out his hand. Just call me Newman. I'm not from the Lampari Kingdom, but from the Kingdom of Ruhr in the south. Hearing this self-introduction, Su was surprised. It was reasonable for Reeves to treat him to a meal, but why did he invite two foreigners that he didn't know? Chapter 251. The meals of the Signs continent were a bit different from the meals of the Imperial Court on Earth. Before the meal was over, they definitely wouldn't discuss business. So after a round of toasting and eating to their fill, the dessert was brought over. Everyone sipped their tea before Lewis entered the main topic. Chairman Su, I had Hannes invite you to this meal today. The first reason is that the new flyer has developed very quickly over the past year. So I wanted to see Chairman Su again to see if you've changed compared to a year ago. The second reason is that these two friends of mine have something they want to ask Chairman Su for help with. Newman from the Kingdom of Ruhr immediately said with a nod and a smile. That's right. I specially asked Lewis to see Chairman Su, otherwise I really wouldn't know how to see you. It's the same for me. I came from the duchy this time just to see Chairman Su. Anklo from the Principality of Constantine also said with a nod. Su looked at Hannes with a strange gaze, but he saw him give a shrug, clearly not knowing if this meal was real or fake. So he turned around and looked over the two of them before saying with a faint smile, "The two of you are too polite. Only, is there anything I can help you with?" The two looked at each other before Newman spoke first. It's like this, Chairman Su. I've heard that your Lampari Kingdom has been promoting the agricultural magic machines produced by your new flyer all over the country last year, and this year's harvest has been very good. The grain yield in the kingdom is much higher than before. Is this true? Ed, I don't know the specific numbers, so it's hard to say if it's much higher or not, but my guess is that it should be around the same. Su replied in an uncertain voice. Of course he was lying. Actually, not long after Bana City's fall harvest ended, he had already received this good news from Count Samo. According to the statistics from the Agriculture Department, in this year's fall harvest, the grain yield of the Lampari Kingdom was 3 times higher than before. Sui came to Anvilmar City this time for another important matter, which was to participate in the banquet the king was holding for this year's harvest. According to 70 Spoiler, Sui was considered the greatest contributor to the Lampari Kingdom's harvest by the king, so he would be given a special reward at the banquet. Of course, there was no need to reveal this in front of these 2 foreigners. Before knowing the true goal of this place, of course he would choose to give a vague answer. Newman didn't care that much about Sui's answer. It was clear that he already had some concrete information. Chairman Sui, I think that no one can deny that your company's agricultural magic machines have played a strong role. So I want to ask you now, does your new flyer have any plans of selling these agricultural magic machines to other countries? Newman asked. Sui was surprised. Mr. Newman, you mean, you want to buy agricultural magic machines? Newman said with a nod, yes. Our Kingdom of Ruhr has more barren farmland than your Lampari Kingdom. So I feel that if we can buy enough agricultural magic machines from your company, our Kingdom of Ruhr's grain yield will greatly increase. Although from the perspective of a merchant, of course I hope that the more products my company sells, the better. But Mr. Newman, please forgive me for being blunt, but the agricultural magic machines have received the attention of our Lampari Kingdom's king, so I'm afraid I can't decide to sell them to you. Sui said in a helpless voice. Newman laughed. I think that Chairman Sui doesn't need to worry about this matter, because since Mr. Lewis is willing to bring me to see you, your honorable king will definitely agree to this matter. Is that so? Sui looked at Lewis with a confused gaze. Did this Lewis have that much power? Lewis gave a slight nod to Sui. Chairman Sui, you don't need to worry about this. It would be strange if Sui wasn't worried. These agricultural magic machines could be considered a strategic resource of the Lampari Kingdom. In a normal situation, His Majesty wouldn't allow them to be exported to other countries. However, Lewis clearly wasn't willing to reveal anything, so Sui could only look at the silent Hannes on the side. Hannes immediately nodded to Sui. Relax, since Uncle Lewis has already said this. You don't need to worry. This fellow isn't reliable. Sui muttered in his heart. He looked back at Newman, and after thinking about it, he said, Mr. Newman, as long as His Majesty agrees, I'm very happy to make this deal with you. But before this, I want to ask, how many agricultural magic machines are you planning to buy? Newman raised a finger. I'm planning to buy 10,000 of each kind of agricultural magic machine. If the effects are satisfactory, perhaps I'll place more orders in the future. 10,000 of each kind? Sui was surprised. Currently, New Flyer was producing a total of 6 kinds of agricultural magic machines. If Newman bought 10,000 of each kind, with the current price, this order would add up to over 4 million gold coins. With New Flyer's terrifying profit margin on agricultural magic machines, just based on this order, New Flyer could earn a terrifying profit of close to 3 million gold coins. What? Chairman Sui, is there a problem? Seeing Sui's expression change, Newman asked this. Sui took a sip of the tea on the table and worked hard to calm the excited emotions in his heart. After pausing for a bit, he said, Mr. Newman, I'm very curious about your identity. Newman and Lewis looked at each other before saying with a smile, It seems like Chairman Sui is doubting whether I can pay for this order. Sui shook his head. No, since you were invited by Mr. Lewis, of course I won't doubt your ability to pay. I just feel that it's very strange. If Mr. Newman is a normal merchant, why would you want to buy all these agricultural magic machines? Even if you want to sell them in the Kingdom of Ruhr, I feel that because of the transportation problem, there won't be much profit to be gained. Newman suddenly broke out in laughter. Chairman Sui, if I said that I wasn't doing this to earn money, would you believe me? Sui looked at him, clearly not believing him. All right, it seems like if I don't explain it clearly, it'll be hard to obtain Chairman Sui's trust. My identity is publicly known as the chairman of the Kingdom of Ruhr's Rudsun Chamber of Commerce. But in reality, I'm a manager who does business for the royal family, just like Mr. Lewis. Now, Chairman Sui, do you understand what I mean? Sue immediately noticed that Newman said that he had the same identity as Louis. This also meant that Louis was actually a comprador of the Lampari Kingdom's royal family. It was no wonder Louis and Hannes told Sue that he didn't need to worry that the king wouldn't agree to him selling the agricultural magic machines. Perhaps today's meeting was arranged by Louis at the king's behest. Sue, he couldn't help shaking his head. Since it was like this, why didn't anyone tell him ahead of time and let him prepare his heart ahead of time? Chairman Sue, if it wasn't necessary, I didn't want to reveal my identity, so I asked for your forgiveness. Louis gave a slight bow to Sue as he spoke in an apologetic voice. Sue quickly waved his hand. No, Mr. Louis, you don't need to apologize. But since I know your and Mr. Newman's identities, it's much easier to talk about. All right, I can accept this order on behalf of New Flyer. Newman immediately picked up a bottle of wine and filled Sue's and his own glasses before the two of them clinked glasses. Chairman Sue, I hope that we can have a happy cooperation. After Newman and Sue reached an agreement, it was naturally Anclo's turn next. Sue wiped the wine from the corner of his mouth and looked at Anclo to ask, Mr. Anclo, are you the same as Mr. Newman? Are you interested in our company's agricultural magic machines? Anclo shook his head. No, I'm different from him. He's here to buy things, and I'm here to sell things. Sell things? Sue, he was surprised. What do you have to sell to me? Chairman Sue, you should ask what our Principality of Constantine wants to sell to you. Hearing the meaning in Anclo's words, Sue's heart skipped a beat before he quickly asked, Then, Mr. Anclo, what does your Principality of Constantine want to sell to me? Anclo revealed a faint smile. I've heard that Chairman Sue has always been interested in buying mines. So how about we sell you 2 iron mines and 1 copper mine first? 2 iron mines? 1 copper mine? Sue looked at Anclo in disbelief. Mr. Anclo, you wouldn't be joking, right? Of course I'm not joking. Anclo shook his head. Chairman Sue, I especially asked Mr. Louis to meet you this time. It wasn't a joke with you. How about it? I represent Duke Stantine to invite your new flyer to our Principality of Constantine to mine the 2 iron mines and 1 copper mine that the Duke personally chose. What do you think? Sue swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. Mr. Anclo, is this really Duke Stantine's idea? I can understand the 2 iron mines, but why did Duke Stantine choose to sell us the copper mine? It's very simple. It's no use leaving it there. So the Duke decided to use it to exchange for some things that we need. Anclo replied. Sue could hear the hidden meaning in Anclo's words. So you're saying, Duke Stantine doesn't want me to pay with gold coins? I just don't know what the Duke wants. Chairman Sue, let's not discuss these things here, right? Anclo's gaze swept over Louis, Newman, and Hannes as he asked Sue, I just want to ask Chairman Sue, now that the Duke wants to sell, do you want to buy? Sue, he sat up straight, and his expression became serious as he slowly nodded. Yes, I want to buy very much. Chapter 252. When Steele finished the Serene Chamber of Commerce's lunch and returned to the courtyard, she found Sue lying on the table, seriously studying a map. What are you doing? Steele asked curiously. You're back. Sue raised his head and pointed at the map. I'm studying the terrain of the Principality of Constantine. The Principality of Constantine? Steele tilted her head to think for a bit. She remembered that she had learned some knowledge about this duchy beside the Lampuri Kingdom in the continent's political science course she had studied at school. Oh, it's that principality in the cracks. Why are you suddenly studying its terrain? Because I might have to take a trip there after a while, so I'll study it first to prepare myself. Sue replied. You want to go to the Principality of Constantine? Steele was even more surprised. Why? Sue gave Steele a general overview of the situation at the lunch table. Steele listened and thought for a while. The first question she was concerned about was completely out of Sue's expectations. Well, the people of the Principality of Constantine are really pitiful. I heard from my teacher that the average lifespan of the people of the Principality of Constantine is less than 40 years old. It's much worse than the Lampari Kingdom. Now, They even want to sell the copper mines in the Principality. It seems that Duke Stantine really can't hold on. Suyi's expression was a bit strange. I say, Steele, hearing you say that, why do I feel like I'm a shameful invader? Steele pursed her lips and smiled. If it were other merchants, they would definitely be taking advantage of the situation. But a good person like Suyi wouldn't. Am I right? Don't give me the good guy card. Suyi couldn't help but mutter. He touched his nose and said seriously, it's wrong to say that I definitely won't take advantage of people when they are in trouble. In fact, according to Anklo, the Principality of Constantine had always been in danger. I would be taking advantage of the situation whenever I went there. But this time, he took the initiative to come to me, so it can't be said that I'm ashamed. I can only say that everyone can take what they need. And what does the Principality of Constantine want from you? Steele asked curiously. I haven't discussed this with Anklo yet, but Anklo said that they don't need gold coins, so it should be something that is hard to buy with gold coins. I'm guessing that it should be some technology. Suyi said. Technology? Steele was surprised. What technology do they need from you? Even if he gave them the magic machine technology, they wouldn't be able to use it. I feel that they should be like the Kingdom of Ruhr and buy some agricultural magic machines to let their people fill their stomachs. No, they don't need the agricultural magic machines right now. Suyi shook his head and pointed at the Principality of Constantine on the map. Look, the Principality of Constantine is different from the other countries on the continent. Most of their land is by the sea, and they're often attacked by hurricanes and tsunamis, so the grain yield in this half of their land is very unstable. Because there might be a hurricane or tsunami at any time, it could wipe out a year's harvest. Steele looked at the map for a while before giving a slight nod, as a look of sympathy appeared on her face. The people of this duchy really are pitiful. They can't even properly farm. It's a good thing they can rely on fishing for a living, otherwise I really don't know how they could survive. Suyi revealed a faint smile. Actually, although most of their land is by the sea and they are often attacked by hurricanes and tsunamis, it also gives them a natural giant advantage. Only they haven't discovered and used it yet. Natural giant advantage? Steele looked at the map in confusion for a while, but she didn't notice anything. Where's the advantage? The long coastline is their giant advantage. Suyi replied. Of course, not to mention the Principality of Constantine. Even the signs don't realize the importance of this. What advantage is the coastline? Steele was even more confused. It's still too early to say this, but as long as we develop the engine, we can use this advantage. Seeing the mysterious smile on Suyi's face, Steele couldn't help rolling her eyes at him. According to her understanding of Suyi clearly had a long-term plan, but because he wasn't completely certain right now, no matter how she asked, Suyi wouldn't give a clear answer. Steele didn't plan on asking questions like a normal girl. After being with Suyi for a long time, she would often encounter this kind of situation. If she asked questions every time, it would definitely make Suyi feel disgusted. Steele was a smart girl. Of course, she wouldn't do something this stupid. The two of them changed the topic and talked about the Kingdom of Ruhr for a bit. Great Magician Camilla had finished attending the Sorcerers Guild's banquet and returned to the yard. Seeing that Suyi was also here, Great Magician Camilla asked him without any courtesy, Hey, brat, you'll be participating in the exam tomorrow. Are you prepared? Suyi gave a shrug and replied with a relaxed look. What is there to prepare? It's fine as long as you show your strength. Great Magician Camilla glared at him, but Suyi came over with a mischievous smile and mysteriously asked, Your Excellency, Great Magician, since you're in charge of tomorrow's exam, can you give me some questions ahead of time? Great Magician Camilla naturally knew that Suyi was joking, but he couldn't help angrily glaring at him. He angrily waved his hand, scram. After pausing for a bit, he added, The high-level magician exam only has an extra high-level magic exam compared to the low-level magician exam. There isn't any other difference, so you don't need to worry. High-level magic. Suyi couldn't help knitting his brows. The so-called high-level magic was referring to the high-level variations of the four main elements: wind, water, fire, and earth. For example, The high-level wind magic was thunder magic, and the high-level water magic was ice magic. Properly speaking, once a magician reached the 6th grade, they would begin to grasp some high-level magic. However, Sui felt that high-level magic didn't have much meaning in studying magic machines, so he rarely studied them. Although he should be a 7th-grade magician based on normal magic power, his grasp of high-level magic was very weak. To put it simply, his research in magic was a little biased. His attainments in magic formations were not much weaker than those of 8th tier or even 9th tier magic casters, but his research in lethal magic was at best comparable to that of 6th tier magic casters. Seeing Sui's expression, Great Magician Camilla and Steele were a bit surprised. Steele immediately asked, "It can't be that you can't grasp high-level magic, right?" Sui revealed an awkward smile. It's indeed not that good. All right, strictly speaking, I still haven't grasped a single high-level magic spell. Great Magician Camilla and Steele's eyes popped out. Great Magician Camilla angrily said, "Brat, you're telling me you have the strength of a 7th-grade magician? You can't be considered a 7th-grade magician if you don't know high-level magic." Steele slightly knit her brows and said in a worried voice, "Grandfather is right. If you don't know high-level magic, the Sorcerer's Guild wouldn't recognize you as a high-level magician. Not to mention a 7th-grade magician, even a 6th-grade magician wouldn't let you pass." This stinky brat, I already told him to spend more time on magic research, but he wouldn't listen. Great Magician Camilla angrily said, "What do we do now? If you participate in the high-level magician exam and tell others that you don't know a single high-level magic spell, that would simply be a giant joke." Sui didn't react as intensely as the two of them. His expression was still relaxed as he said with a smile, "This isn't much, right? If I can't pass, I'll just take the exam next year. I'll properly study high-level magic this year, and I'll definitely meet the requirements." "That's easy for you to say." Great Magician Camilla's saliva almost landed on Sui's face. "Brat, during lunch today, I praised you for half a day in front of everyone. I said that with your talent, you would definitely pass the exam tomorrow. Now you're telling me that you're planning on giving up? You're not afraid of losing face, but I'm afraid of losing face. Let me tell you, if you back out this time, do you believe that I'll have Steele never associate with you again?" Sui and Steele were stunned at the same time. Steele immediately stomped her foot. "Grandfather, what nonsense are you saying? What does this have to do with us being together? Humph. In short, I'm saying this. Brat, what do you plan on doing?" Sui knit his brows and helplessly said, "But even if I don't back out and participate in the exam, I really don't know a single high-level magic spell, so I still can't pass the exam." "You really don't know a single one?" Great Magician Camilla's expression was a bit ugly. "Brat, I know that threatening you is useless, but do you know that your performance in the exam this time is very likely related to the Guild's attitude towards magic machines? If you perform well, then the patent bill that the Union is about to pass may be closer to your expectations in terms of the specific terms. But if your performance is too bad, even if this patent bill passes, I'm afraid it won't be as good as you think." Sui was stunned. "Your Excellency, Great Magician, why didn't you say so earlier? If I knew that this matter was this serious, I would have properly studied high-level magic." Great Magician Camilla glared at him and angrily said, "How could I know that you haven't studied high-level magic?" Hearing Great Magician Camilla's words, Steele was also a bit anxious. Sui had mentioned to her many times how important an official patent law would be to the development of the magic machine industry, so he had always hoped that the Sorcerer's Guild could pass a perfect patent law. Now that Great Magician Camilla had said that Sui's performance in the exam would affect the patent law, this was very important to Sui. "Grandfather, can't you think of a way? Why don't you guide him now and see if he can master an advanced spell by today?" Great Magician Camilla looked at Steele and said with a cold snort, "With this brat's talent, it isn't impossible. But do you think that with just a single afternoon and night, even if he learns a high-level magic spell, can he really grasp it well? When it comes to the exam tomorrow, it will be even more embarrassing." Steele was already a 5th-grade magician and was beginning to touch high-level magic, So of course she knew that great magician Camilla was completely right. Then what do we do? Steele anxiously said, seeing the deeply knitted brows of great magician Camilla and the worried Steele. Su Yi's mind quickly turned. Actually, he wasn't that worried. Even if the patent law passed by the Sorcerers Guild wasn't perfect, with the development of the magic machine industry, the Sorcerers Guild would realize the importance of the patent law sooner or later. Then it would be perfected according to Su Yi's expectations. Moreover, Su Yi could use the new flyer's special position in the industry to set some rules, so he didn't rely too much on the patent law. But since great magician Camilla and Steele were this worried about him, he couldn't act like he didn't care and had to work hard. Countless thoughts passed through his mind, and suddenly, an idea flashed in Su Yi's mind. Su Yi revealed a confident smile to great magician Camilla and Steele. I remember now. I've already grasped a high-level magic spell, and I've grasped it very well. Chapter 253. Perhaps it was because this year's Magicians Guild certification exam had been delayed by a month. But after the most popular primary and second-level magician exams had ended, the Magicians Guild announced that the 3rd to 5th level magician exams would be held in 2 days. Apart from the 3rd-ranked magicians who would take the exam today, the remaining 4th and 5th-ranked magicians could take the exam at any time. Thus, Su Yi and Steele arrived at the Sheldon early in the morning and met up with the researchers of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber Commerce. The Academy of Magic's magicians ranged from 3rd to 7th rank, but there was only one 7th-ranked magician, 3 6th-ranked magicians, and 8 5th-ranked magicians. These researchers would go with Su Yi to take the high-level magician exam. The remaining 37 researchers were all 3rd and 4th-ranked magicians and would go with Steele to take the low-level magician exam. When the total of 49 researchers, Su Yi and Steele, gathered together, they immediately attracted everyone's attention. This was because these 51 people were all wearing the same magic robes. Moreover, on the chest area of the magic robes, there was a half-wing emblem. With one look, one could tell that these magicians were from the same organization. Although a large number of magicians had entered Amblemar City because of the Sorcerers Guild certification exam, this was the first time so many magicians were wearing the same uniform. The group of people had just walked out of the Sheldon Inn's entrance and immediately attracted the attention of everyone outside the inn. People who didn't recognize the emblem on their chest couldn't help but point at them and guess. Hey, look, that group of magicians should all be from the same place, right? Look at them. They shouldn't be from a cult, right? Cult my ass. Since when did our Lampari kingdom have cult? And it's a cult formed by a group of magicians? I think you should go see a doctor and see if there's something wrong with your brain. If I had to guess, they should all be under the same great magician, because only a great magician would have so many magicians under him. At this time, the people who recognized the emblem looked at the people from before with eyes of disdain and began to educate them. 2 ignorant fellows. Do you know what the emblem on their chest is? Let me tell you, that doesn't represent a great magician or some damn cult. It's actually the emblem of the new flyer. Do you know the new flyer? It sells those strange household magic machines. Let me tell you, I bought a magic bread maker a while ago, and it's very easy to use. After recognizing the new flyer emblem, the crowd was even more surprised. Although there were many companies that hired magicians, it was rare to see a company like the Frestec Chamber of Commerce that hired a large group of magicians at once. Just based on the number of magicians they hired, just based on the 50 magicians new flyer had including Su Yi and Steele, it was enough to be considered a first-class company in the Lampari Kingdom. Some of the more knowledgeable people also noticed the magic robes that everyone was wearing. They discovered that although they were all wearing the same style magic robes, the materials used to make the magic robes were of high quality. They were tailored to fit the body, and the workmanship was exquisite. It was obvious that they were made by a famous tailor. Not mentioning anything else, just these magic robes were worth quite a bit. It could be seen that this new flyer was spending quite a bit. Just giving each magician under them a set of magic robes wasn't cheap. Not to mention that they had just come out of the Sheldon Inn, so it could be seen that these magicians had been living in the Sheldon Inn during this time. Thinking of the high price of the Sheldon Inn, everyone guessed that these magicians wouldn't be paying for their accommodations, but rather New Flyer. If it was like this, the treatment that New Flyer gave these magicians really was a bit too good. Moreover, this wasn't all. The group of magicians waited at the entrance of a Sheldon Inn for a while before 10 horse carriages pulled by 2 white horses slowly came out of the street and stopped in front of everyone. Seeing these magicians step into the horse carriages, the crowd was even more shocked, just based on the fact that the white horses pulling the carriages didn't have any other colors. One could tell that these horse carriages were very luxurious. Then looking at the beautiful decorations and the First and Carriage Company's logo on the carriages, everyone could tell that these 10 horse carriages were the First and Carriage Company's most precious Duke grade horse carriages. A single Duke grade horse carriage cost 50 gold coins a day, but this New Flyer actually rented 10 of them at once. After calculating that these 10 horse carriages cost 500 gold coins, everyone could only watch with incomparably envious gazes as the 10 horse carriages quickly left the city for the Sorcerers Guild's exam venue. Oh, look, those people must be dying of envy. In the first horse carriage, a collie pointed at the people on the street with an excited look on her face. Bella on the side was even more excited than her. She looked up at the beautiful painting on the ceiling and touched the soft leather seat under her, but then she pulled open the secret compartment under the seat and found that there were several bottles of red wine and grape wine inside. She couldn't help saying in a shocked voice, "God, this is the most luxurious horse carriage I've ever ridden in my life. Sir Chairman, I really love you to death." Claire on the side looked at her. "Hey, Bella, be careful. Steele is here, and if you say this in front of her, be careful that Steele isn't happy." Steele revealed a faint smile. "What am I not happy about? Don't I understand Bella? She likes to talk nonsense when she's too excited." Bella rolled her eyes and moved closer to Steele. She smiled and asked Steele, "Steele, what if I'm not talking nonsense and I really fall in love with Sir Chairman?" Steele shrugged. "If you fall in love with him, then so be it. I can't do anything about it. Anyway, it's fine as long as Sue E doesn't love you." "Oomph. How do you know that Sir Chairman doesn't love me?" Bella was not convinced and turned to Sue E. "Sir Chairman, I'm going to confess to you now. I'm in love with you. Do you love me?" Sue E didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head. "All right, stop fooling around. The exam is about to start. Aren't you guys nervous?" "What's there to be nervous about?" Bella looked frustrated as she sat back in her seat. Compared to being rejected by Sir Chairman, failing the exam is nothing. Sigh. "Sir Chairman, when will you change your mind? If you don't want Steele anymore, you have to remember that I've always been waiting for you." Sue, he rolled his eyes and said, "All right, if it wasn't for the advertising effect, I wouldn't have rented such an expensive carriage. Since we haven't reached the exam site yet, you should seize the opportunity to enjoy yourself. I won't waste money like this in the future." Bella smiled and rummaged through the secret compartment for a while. She didn't dare to drink because the exam was about to start. She could only take out a cup of phoenix tail nectar and sip it. "Sir Chairman, you said advertising effect just now. Is it all for the sake of letting us stay at the Sheldon Inn, making us these magic robes, and renting these luxurious carriages?" Claire asked curiously. "Not all of it. Letting you stay at the Sheldon Inn is purely for the sake of letting you have a good rest during this period of time so that you could be in better condition for the exam." So he answered, "As for the magic robes, they are half and half. You see, with our new flyer badge, this is a very good advertising effect. But if you take off the badge, you can still wear this magic robe, right? Yes, this robe is very beautiful, and the material is also very good. I like it very much." A collie picked up the magic robe and looked left and right. She was very satisfied. "Sir Chairman, do you mean that you will give this robe to us in the future?" "Of course. Why would I keep it if I don't give it to you?" Hearing Su Yi's answer, a collie, Claire, and Bella all cheered and high-fived each other at the same time. They had already asked about the price of this magic robe, and each one was no less than 10 gold coins. For magicians like them who came from ordinary families, Such expensive robes were something that they couldn't bear to buy in the past. Now that Sui said that he would give this magic robe to them, of course they were very happy. Claire couldn't help but wink at Sui. Sir Chairman, you are really a good person. If you don't like Bella, you can choose me. Even if you love Steele at the same time, it doesn't matter. I don't mind. Steele rolled her eyes at her. Claire, are you going to mess around with Bella too? Claire giggled. I'm telling the truth. Sir Chairman is so young, handsome, rich, and generous. Who wouldn't like him? Don't you think so, Akali? Akali's reaction was a bit strange. She stared at Sui for a while in a daze, and the smile on her face gradually disappeared and her expression became a bit stiff. Seeing her reaction, Claire and Bella, who were still laughing, quieted down at the same time. Together with Steele, they looked at Akali in surprise. Bella was about to say something, but Claire pulled her back, stopping her from asking any questions. The two small movements made the atmosphere in the carriage even more awkward. Steele's eyes moved between Akali's and Suyi's faces, and her expression also became strange. She originally wanted to ask, but after thinking about it, she could only swallow the question back into her stomach. The noisy carriage instantly turned into a deathly silence. All that could be heard was the sound of the horses' hooves and the squeaking of the carriage's wheels as they rolled over the dirt. Chapter 254. It was a good thing that the Sorcerers Guild's examination area wasn't far from Anvilmar City, so the awkward atmosphere didn't last for too long. When the 10 carriages stopped outside the examination area, the new flyer magicians wearing the same style of magic robes jumped down from the carriages. All the magicians waiting for the examination to begin shifted their gazes over. As magicians, they were naturally more informed than normal people. Moreover, just yesterday, the Anvilmar Times reported that the new flyer had arranged for all the magicians in the Chamber of Commerce to participate in the examination. Therefore, when they saw this scene, the magicians outside the examination area were only a bit surprised. It didn't take long for them to react. However, when they saw the 10 luxurious carriages and the magic robes the new flyer magicians wore, most of the magicians couldn't help but reveal a trace of envy in their eyes. Seeing the gazes of the surrounding magicians, Sui smiled with satisfaction. Although he had spent quite a bit of money on this advertisement, as long as it had a sufficient effect, it was worth it. Sui gathered everyone and was about to say a few words of encouragement and wish them success in passing the examination when he suddenly heard a strange voice from the side. Oh, I was wondering who had so much money that they had nowhere to spend it. So was Chairman Sui. No wonder, no wonder. Only you would pretend to be fat after slapping yourself until your face was swollen. Everyone turned around, and Sui looked at the person who walked out from the crowd. He smiled and said, So is Mr. Aaron. What's the matter? Are you here to participate in the 5th rank examination? Aaron's expression froze. After a while, he dryly said, No, I'm here to participate in the 4th rank examination. Sui couldn't help finding this funny. Although this fellow had a strange hostility toward him last year and was even injured after being taught a lesson by him, so he definitely hated him now. But in the end, he was still a child who had just become an adult, so he actually honestly answered this question. Of course, Sui wouldn't ignore what he said just because he was still young. He deliberately showed a surprised expression and said, Oh, I thought that since you were so confident last year, you must have passed the level 4 exam. I didn't expect that you actually failed. What a pity. Aaron's face alternated between green and white. After his expression changed several times, he glared fiercely at Sui. I'm warning you. Don't be arrogant in front of me. Be careful that I won't let you pass the review this year. Sui spread out his hands and smiled. Young Master Allen, that's what you said last year, but it doesn't seem like you did. As for this year, I'm sorry, but this year I'm participating in the 7th level magician exam, and you're participating in the 4th level magician exam. We don't even seem to be in the same exam room. Even if you want to deliberately stop me like last year, I'm afraid you won't have the chance. Hearing Sui's words, the surrounding mages finally understood what was going on. However, everyone still felt that it was strange. Logically speaking, with Sue, E, and Ankh Aaron's status, the two of them shouldn't be together. Why was there such a huge conflict between them last year? To the point that Ankh Aaron's expression looked like he wanted to eat Sue, E. Of course, one thing was clear. In the conflict between the two, the one who suffered was definitely Ankh Aaron. Thinking about how Ankh Aaron was the only son of the Sorcerers Guild's president, Palms Aaron, everyone looked at Sue E with even more strange gazes. Even if the new flyer was very famous now, in terms of status, Sue E, as the president of the new flyer, was still far from the Sorcerers Guild's president, Palms Aaron. Moreover, at this time last year, the new flyer didn't have any fame to speak of in Anvilmar City. Then last year, when Sue, E, and Ankh Aaron had a conflict, how did he survive Palms Aaron's anger? After hearing Sue Yi's words, Ankh Aaron angrily clenched his fists. After being injured by Sue E last year, he thought that his father would definitely avenge him. Who knew that his father didn't do anything after that? Later on, when he raised his objections, he was fiercely taught a lesson by his father. At that time, he knew that Sue E wasn't as simple as he looked, so he helplessly gave up on the idea of seeking revenge on Sue E. But today, when he suddenly saw Sue E here, he couldn't help but jump out. Even if he couldn't do anything to Sue E because of his father's special warning last night, he could still take advantage of him by ridiculing him. Who knew that in terms of words, he was even less of a match for Sue E. Now that he heard Sue Yi's words, he couldn't refute at all, because what Sue E said wasn't wrong at all. Sue E was participating in the 7th level magician examination, while he could only participate in the 4th level magician examination. The high-level magician examination and the low-level magician examination were separated. He didn't even have a chance to teach Sue E a lesson like last year. Thinking of this, Ankh Aaron suddenly noticed a shocking fact. He pointed at Sue E in astonishment and shouted, "You just said you want to participate in the 7th level magician examination? You must be lying. Last year, you barely passed the 5th level magician examination. How can you have the ability to participate in the 7th level magician examination this year? This is simply impossible." Hearing Ankh Aaron's question, the surrounding magicians also looked at Sue E in astonishment. At this time, many magicians remembered that last year, Sue E had directly become a 5th level magician when he first participated in the Sorcerers Guild examination. At that time, it had caused a sensation in the magician's circle of the Lampari Kingdom. But last year, he was only a 5th level magician. This year, he actually dared to participate in the 7th level magician examination. If he wasn't overestimating himself, then wasn't the speed at which he advanced from a 5th level magician to a 7th level magician too terrifying? So he didn't really care about his personal strength. Thus, even though he knew that this was an excellent opportunity to show off, he only casually smiled and said to Ankh Aaron, "This question isn't something you need to worry about. All right, the examination is about to begin. I won't chat with you anymore." After saying this, Sue E turned around and no longer paid attention to Ankh Aaron. He began to motivate the researchers of the new flyer before the examination. Ankh Aaron originally wanted to mock Sue E, but when he saw Sue E being surrounded by a group of magicians wearing similar robes, he seemed to have thought of something. His gaze swept past the badges on the chest of the group of magicians. The corner of his mouth rose, revealing a trace of complacency and a cruel smile. After waiting outside the examination hall for a while, the staff of the Sorcerers Guild finally announced that the examination had officially begun. Thus, the magicians outside the examination hall were divided into 2 groups, each of them walking towards a different examination hall. Sue E waved his hand at the researchers participating in the low-level magician examination. Then, he waved his fist at the leader Steel and revealed an encouraging smile. Only then did he enter the examination hall with the other 12 researchers participating in the high-level magician examination. After entering the examination hall, he discovered that the number of magicians in the examination hall was even less than the number of magicians Sue He had participated in the 5th level magician examination last year. However, this was a normal phenomenon. The higher a magician's level, the harder it was to advance. Currently, there were about 10,000 magicians in the Lampari Kingdom. The number of 4th level magicians that had been certified by the Sorcerers Guild was less than 500. Every year, less than half of them felt that their strength was enough to advance to the 5th level and participate in the examination. There were also less than 500 magicians like Su Yi who had the strength of a 5th level magician or higher. However, due to the difficulty of advancing their strength, the number of magicians who felt that their strength was enough to advance to the 5th level was even fewer. In fact, the 12 high-level magicians of the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce weren't certain that their strength was enough to advance to the 5th level. The main reason they came to participate in the examination this time was that the new flyer had provided them with transportation, accommodation, and even subsidies. Otherwise, there would not be more than 5 people who came with the idea of testing their strength. So Su-Yi looked around the examination hall and found that including himself, there were only 40-50 high-level magicians participating in the examination. No wonder the Sorcerers Guild would put all the high-level magicians together. If there were only this few people, Su-Yi even felt that it was a waste to have 5 great magicians present at the same time. Thinking of the great magicians, Su-Yi raised his head and saw the 5 great magicians sitting in front of the examination hall. Great magician Camilla was sitting in the 2nd seat from the left. When he saw Su-Yi look over, he gave a slight nod to Su-Yi. Sitting in the 1st seat to his left was great magician Eisenkel. Compared to great magician Camilla, his attitude towards Su-Yi was a bit more friendly. However, compared to when the two of them were discussing, he was much more restrained and only revealed a gentle smile. After all, he had the identity of an examiner, so it wasn't appropriate for him to be this close to Su-Yi. Su-Yi had never seen the 2 great magicians on the right before, but Su-Yi recognized the great magician sitting in the middle. It was the chairman of the Sorcerers Guild last year, Palm Zarin. When Su-Yi looked at him, he was also looking at Su-Yi. Their gazes met, and Palm Zarin narrowed his eyes and gave a slight nod. Su-Yi returned a faint smile, but he was wondering if he already knew that Aaron had provoked him outside. If he knew that his son was this stupid, then this Sir Chairman wouldn't feel good. Chapter 255. Perhaps it was because this was the first time that the Sorcerers Guild branch in the kingdom was responsible for the examination, but before the examination began, the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild held a small ceremony. During the ceremony, not only did they read the signed Sorcerers Guild's decision on this change, they also read out the specific rules of the examination. From President Palm Zarin's reading, Su-Yi heard a noteworthy issue. Because not every country in the signs had a great magus, the Sorcerers Guild reassigned the countries that didn't have a great magus. The great magi of these countries who wanted to participate in the examination would be sent to the nearest country with a great magus to take the examination. Because the Principality of Constantine didn't have a great magus, and because the Principality of Constantine was the closest to the Lampari Kingdom, the Principality of Constantine and 2 other small duchies bordering the Lampari Kingdom were given to the Lampari Kingdom. Hearing President Aaron's announcement, Su-Yi couldn't help but size up the various great magi participating in the examination. He wanted to find the great magi from the Principality of Constantine who had come to participate in the examination. However, the great magi all looked the same, and Su-Yi had no way of distinguishing them based on their appearance. At the end of the ceremony, President Aaron introduced the other 4 great magi to everyone and told everyone that today they would have the honor of taking the examination of all 5 great magi in the Lampari Kingdom. This is a rare honor, because from next year onwards, the guild will only request 1 great magus to supervise the examination, so you won't have the opportunity to display your strength in front of all 5 great magi. You must seize this opportunity and properly display your talent and ability. Understood? President Aaron asked loudly. The great magi all shouted excitedly in unison, "Understood." Sui was a little frightened by their passion and excitement, because in his opinion, great magicians were not that rare. Therefore, he couldn't understand. To other magicians, great magicians were their goals and targets of worship. To be able to show off in front of 5 great magicians at the same time was indeed a rare honor. After the ceremony ended, President Aaron did not waste any time and immediately announced the start of the test. In short, the high-grade magician exam was just like great magician Camilla said before. The process and content of the exam were no different from the low-grade magician exam. In the beginning, they were also given a written test to test their theoretical knowledge of magic. This was naturally not difficult for Sui. What was difficult and what great magician Camilla was worried about was the high-grade magic demonstration after the written test. Seeing the magicians in front of him display their high-grade magic, Sui was a little uncertain. Although the method he thought of to replace high-grade magic was quite good and had obtained great magician Camilla's approval, it wasn't a true high-grade magic. Perhaps the other 4 great magicians would find out, and he wouldn't be able to obtain their approval. Very quickly, the magicians in front of Sui finished their demonstrations, and it was Sui's turn. Great magician Camilla looked at Sui with a trace of questioning in his eyes. Sui suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and nodded at great magician Camilla with a confident smile on his face. Great magician Camilla finally relaxed and gave Sui an encouraging smile. Great magician Eisenkel, of course, wasn't worried. He was just like the other 3 great magicians, curiously looking at Sui. In the circle of magicians in the Lampari Kingdom, Sui was already quite famous. Apart from the fact that he had passed the level 5 mage examination the previous year, what made him even more well-known to most mages was the magic machinery that he had researched. Before Sui, magicians didn't pay much attention to the application of magic. But after Sui researched the magic machines, magicians found that magic could be used with machines. The most important thing was that the magic machines made so much money. After many magicians found out about the new flyer and the magic machines, they all felt regret in their hearts. If they could think of using magic like this and invent magic machines before Sui, wouldn't they be able to earn a lot of money? Magicians were the same as normal people. They loved money. They even loved money more than normal people, because as long as they had enough money, they could buy enough magic materials and experiment as they wished. So in reality, the growth of every magician was supported by large amounts of money. But when many magicians threw themselves into the research of magic machines, they found that magic machines weren't that easy to research. There were countless companies that researched magic machines in the Lampari Kingdom, but without the support of the new flyer, there wasn't a single company that could produce a magic machine that could compare to the new flyer. So the magicians of the Lampari Kingdom were even more curious about Sui. How did this guy come up with those magic machines? President Aaron's thoughts were different from the others. He was thinking about Sui's special visit to him last year about the Magic Patent Bill. After a year of discussion, the Sorcerers Guild had basically passed this bill. But there were some details that the Sorcerers Guild hadn't reached a consensus on. For example, the issue of collecting patent fees. Many magicians said that they shouldn't collect it, but another group of magicians said that they had to collect it, and they had to collect it in large amounts. President Aaron supported the idea of collecting patent fees, and according to his understanding of the decision-makers of the Sorcerers Guild, the final rule would definitely be to collect it. But as for how much to collect, that would need to be discussed. President Aaron looked at Sui, who was the initiator of this bill, and thought about how Sui said last year that the new flyer could pay a high fee for magic patents. So how high was this so-called high? So when the 5 great magicians saw Sui go on stage, they all fell into a short silence because of their own thoughts. This strange situation immediately made Sui, who had already received the attention of other magicians, more attention. The other magicians saw that the 5 great magicians were all staring at Sui and couldn't help but feel envious and jealous. This Sue-E not only relied on magic machines to open the new flyer and earn that much money, he was also valued by 5 great magicians. He really was lucky. After a bit of silence, President Aaron finally reacted from the soft reminder of the staff member on the side. With a soft cough, he had Sue-E begin his high-level magic demonstration. Sue-E gave a bow to the 5 great magicians and then said to the staff member of the Sorcerers Guild in charge of the exam, "I specialize in wind magic, so I'll be demonstrating a high-level wind magic spell, lightning magic." The staff member was a 9th grade magician and nodded when he heard this. "All right, please begin." After saying this, he moved back a bit and activated the magic barrier around the exam room, leaving a large space for Sue-E. Under everyone's complicated gazes, Sue-E slightly raised his hands and the magic in his body began to quickly flow. Other than great magician Camilla, the other 4 great magicians and the magicians with the strongest magic power all knit their brows. Although lightning magic was an advanced form of wind magic and lightning magic were 2 different things. When using lightning magic, a magician would use their magic to move the surrounding lightning magic to form spell. But with Sue-Yi's magic moving, the surrounding space began to change with wind magic, but the lightning magic didn't change at all. Other than that, even if it was wind elemental magic, there was only a small amount being used right now. Not to mention comparing it to a high-level lightning spell. Even if it was just wind elemental magic, the spell Sue-E was using shouldn't be a high-level spell. However, after a while, the powerful magicians who could clearly feel the surrounding magic elements all had their expressions change. This was because they suddenly felt that the lightning magic elements around Sue-Yi's body had suddenly become active. However, this activity wasn't as regular as when it was being controlled by magic. It was like it wasn't being controlled and was running all over the place. Great magician Eisenkel couldn't help knitting his brows as he said to great magician Camilla in a low voice, "It can't be that he hasn't properly grasped lightning magic, right? If it's like this, I suggest we have him stop first. Otherwise, if he continues like this, there might be a problem because he can't control the lightning magic elements." Great magician Camilla shook his head. "It's fine. This is a new type of lightning magic he developed himself. It's a bit special, but it isn't dangerous." "New type of lightning magic?" Hearing great magician Camilla's reply, great magician Eisenkel and the other 3 great magicians listening to their conversation were stunned. He can actually develop a new type of lightning magic himself? President Aaron couldn't help asking. Could it be that his magic talent is really that strong? Great magician Camilla had a strange expression on his face. After pausing for a bit, he reluctantly nodded. His talent has always shocked me." Seeing that great magician Camilla actually confirmed this answer, everyone looked at Sue-E again with eyes filled with shock. The fact that this guy was able to advance from a 5th-tier magician to a 7th-tier magician in a year was already shocking enough. Now, he was even able to develop a new type of lightning magic. This only showed that his magical talent could not even be described as shocking. In front of everyone, Sue-E seemed to have finished the preparations for this spell. Everyone suddenly found that in the giant space of the test site, all the lightning magic elements suddenly began to wildly flow. At this moment, even the other magic casters standing outside the magic barrier felt the change in space, and their expressions changed drastically. Based on the intensity of the lightning magic fluctuations, what Sue-E was about to demonstrate would be a very shocking lightning magic. When this thought appeared in everyone's mind, there were countless beautiful bolts of lightning that appeared around Sue-E, instantly filling the entire test site with a deathly white light. Chapter 256. After a long while, everyone slowly recovered from the intense light. When they saw the situation in the examination hall clearly, everyone could not help but take in a breath of cold air. In the space covered by the magical shield, the entire ground was charred black, and there were many deep pits of different sizes that had been struck by lightning. It was a scene of devastation as far as the eye could see. Just from the extent of the damage to the ground of the examination hall, it could be seen how terrifying the power of the lightning spell that Su-yi had just released was. Everyone stared at Su-yi, who was standing in the middle as if nothing had happened, dumbfounded. For a moment, they were all speechless. At this moment, the staff member of the Sorcerer's Guild, who was in charge of the magical shield in the examination hall, suddenly exclaimed, attracting everyone's attention. President Aaron frowned and glared at that staff member and said in a slightly reproachful tone, "What's wrong? What's the fuss?" That staff member swallowed his saliva and pointed at the magical shield that he was in charge of. With a face of disbelief, he said, President, the magical shield seems to be a little broken." This time, everyone was stunned again. The magical shield was used to protect the magic used by the participating mages in the examination hall from affecting the outside of the examination hall. Because the participating mages were between the 6th and the 9th level, this magical shield was personally set up by President Aaron in consideration of the power of their magic. It was enough to offset the power of a normal level 9 spell. But now, after Su-yi had released a lightning spell, this magical shield was actually broken. Could it be that the lightning spell that Su-yi used was actually more powerful than a level 9 spell? President Aaron stood up and went to the magical shield to check, and could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He smiled and explained to everyone, "It's not a big deal. It's just that the lightning spell that Su-yi used just now was a little special, so it directly offset the magical shield. It was not that the magical shield was broken because of its power." Hearing this explanation, everyone heaved a sigh of relief in unison. Fortunately, it was not because the power of Su-yi's imitation was too strong. If this was really the reason, then it proved that a level 7 mage like him could actually use a spell that was more powerful than a level 9 mage. This was too shocking. Of course, no one was willing to believe it. Seeing President Aaron finish inspecting the magical shield, Su-yi asked with a faint smile, "May I ask Your Excellency, President, did my high-level magic demonstration pass?" President Aaron looked at Su-yi and couldn't help laughing. "You used such an exaggerated magic spell. If I didn't let you pass, do you think the others would agree?" Everyone else could not help nodding their heads. If Su-yi's high-grade magic demonstration couldn't pass, then what did the magicians who passed before rely on to pass? Su-yi laughed. "I feel that my control over this spell isn't that good, so I'm not certain if I can pass or not." Now that Su-yi can pass the high-grade magic demonstration, I agree that he can pass. What do you all think? Great Magician Camilla and Great Magician Eisenkel were the first ones to agree. The other two Great Magicians looked at each other before nodding in agreement. So the high-level magic demonstration that Great Magician Camilla was most worried about was easily passed by Su-yi. Only Great Magician Camilla looked at Su-yi with a very strange expression, as if he was a bit angry and a bit amused. There is another difference between the high-level magician exam and the low-level magician exam. This was because there weren't many high-level magicians, so they didn't need to select a certain percentage to pass like the low-level magician exam. Rather, as long as you had the corresponding strength, no matter how many passed, they would all pass. So although the high-level magician exam had a practical test, it wasn't as strict as the low-level magician exam. When it came to the exam, although Great Magician Camilla didn't act as Su-yi's examiner because of his principle of avoidance, Great Magician Eisenkel took the initiative to take charge of Su-yi's exam. The others naturally didn't object, and Great Magician Eisenkel pretended to test him. Adding in the fact that Su-yi's understanding of magic and magic was already at the level of a 7th grade magician, he easily passed. After the exam, other than Su-yi passing the 7th grade magician exam and becoming a 7th grade magician recognized by the Sorcerer's Guild, over half of the other 46 magicians had passed. Of the 12 researchers in New Flyer, only 3 passed, and they were all 5th grade magicians. They passed the 6th grade exam and became 6th grade magicians. Compared to this, they weren't even at the average level. But Sui wasn't disappointed with this result. Rather, he was pleasantly surprised. High-level magicians had a good understanding of their own strength. These researchers had already told Sui that their strength wasn't enough for them to be promoted, so Sui didn't think that they would pass the exam. But now there were 3 researchers that had passed the exam and been promoted. This was a bit unexpected. Then again, Sui had already achieved the advertising effect he wanted, so the rest were just minor details that he didn't care about. After the exam ended, the other magicians left the exam room, but Sui was left alone. President Aaron had Sui follow him and the other 4 great magicians into a room behind the exam room to hold a meeting. As for the topic of the meeting, it was about the details of the patent law. Sui didn't have any right to speak about other matters, so he just listened in at the beginning. But when the discussion came to how much should be charged for the patent, President Aaron called out Sui to express his opinion. Your Excellencies, regarding this problem, I think there are 2 solutions that are more suitable. Sui said, There are actually 2? President Aaron was a little surprised. Let's hear it. The first one is to not link the patent protection fee with the patent usage fee. The Sorcerers Guild will charge a fixed fee for every magic research that applies for a patent. As for how to differentiate it, it will be graded according to the importance of the magic research, and a fixed amount will be given for each level. Then how should the amount be set? Different magic research has different difficulties, so I'm afraid it's not appropriate to have the same amount. President Aaron asked again. This is simple. For example, there's a magic research that applies for patent protection that's related to level 1 magic. After evaluation, it's not that important and difficult, so it's rated as level 1 and only costs 10 gold coins a year. But there's another magic research that applies for patent protection that's related to level 5 magic. Usually, it's more difficult and more important than the previous one, so it's rated as level 5 and costs 50 gold coins a year or more. Sui replied, but there's another problem. If a magician develops a more important magic, but can't afford to pay a high-level magic patent protection fee, then wouldn't the patent protection be meaningless? The one who asked this question was one of the 2 great magicians that Sui didn't know before. His name was Samuel Torres. Sui smiled faintly. Your Excellency, great magician Torres, if a magician can't even afford a trivial patent protection fee, then do you think he has enough money to research new magic? Great magician Torres stared blankly and couldn't help but nod. Indeed, researching magic was a very expensive thing, especially when it came to new magic theories that he didn't have any experience with before. All right, Sui, tell me about the other solution. President Aaron urged. As for the second solution, the Sorcerers Guild won't limit the amount of patent protection fee, and it'll be decided by the magicians themselves. Decided by themselves? The great magicians were all stunned. How? It's very simple. If you feel that the patent you want to apply for is very important, then you can pay more patent protection fee to the Sorcerers Guild. Then the Sorcerers Guild will determine the fee for using the patent according to a certain ratio. In other words, the patent protection fee will be tied together with the patent fees. The more you pay, the more compensation you get, and the more the others pay for the usage fees. The great magicians considered it for a bit, and great magician Eisenkel couldn't help praising. I like this solution. It's like making money. If you want to make more money, you have to invest more. But I've always been worried about a problem. That is that more and more magicians will apply for patent protection for their magic research. When that time comes, wouldn't any magician that wants to learn new magic have to pay a large amount of money? The one who asked this question was another great magician Sui didn't recognize, great magician Como Tolucci. Sui looked at him and thought that he should be one of the conservative magicians in the Sorcerers Guild that opposed the patent law. Your Excellency, great magician Tolucci, perhaps the problem you're worried about exists, but haven't you noticed that even before the patent law, it wasn't easy for magicians to learn new magic? Sui asked back. That's still better than spending money to buy it, right? Great magician Tolucci said. No, you're wrong. He shook his head and said without any politeness. Actually, magicians normally treasure the new magic they research and treat it as their private collection, not easily revealing it to others. In fact, after so many years, the level of magic on the entire continent had not improved much compared to thousands of years ago. This was because even if there were magicians who developed new spells and gained new knowledge and understanding of magic, they would not be willing to share it. At most, they would only teach it to a few of their students. As for the other magicians, they have no chance of learning about their new research and discoveries. Great magician Camilla gave a soft sigh and said with a nod, "Sue is right. I've always felt that this situation was a pity. If everyone could share their magic research, the magic level of the signs would have far surpassed the elves of the past. But after I met some elves through Sue, I found that after several thousand years, our human magic still can't compare to the elves' magic." The other great magicians were silent. As great magicians, their horizons were naturally different from those of low-level magicians. As for the reasons Sue mentioned that humans' magic level was limited, they were much clearer on it than Sue. Sue smiled and continued. So, great magician Taluchi, compared to not being able to learn anything, being able to buy it with money is already a very large improvement. The Sorcerers Guild can't expect all magicians to be so selfless, sharing their magic research. Then tell the magicians that they can sell their magic research for money. I think that with the motivation of money, not only will it encourage many mages to share their research findings, but it will also encourage more mages to invest more energy into magic research. And because of the support of money, they will have the ability to conduct more magic research. Great magician Eisenkel slapped the table and said with a look of joy, "This is what I always wanted to say. You always accused me of falling into the abyss of gold coins. But have you ever thought about how hard it was for us to become great magicians? If we had enough gold coins, we might have been able to become great magicians even faster." As for great magician Eisenkel's words, the other four great magicians thought about it and found that they couldn't refute it. If a magician wanted to increase their strength, other than talent, the most important thing was to keep doing magic research. Magic research required money, and without money, they would naturally grow slower than others. This was an axiom in the magician's circle. The room was silent for a while before President Aaron gave a soft cough and said, "Everyone should have no objections to the patent bill. What we need to confirm now is, of the two plans Sui mentioned, which one do you support?" The other four great magicians looked at each other before great magician Eisenkel said, "I support the second plan." Then great magician Camilla expressed that he had no objections to either plan. Great magician Torres and great magician Taluchi also didn't express their opinions. They felt that Suyi's two plans were very reasonable, and they could report both plans to the Magicians' Union headquarters, representing the opinion of the Lampari Kingdom Sorcerers Guild branch. "Very good, then we'll report both plans." President Aaron made his decision before turning to say to Sue, "I'll have to trouble you to help me. Make an analysis of these two plans, and I'll submit it to headquarters together." Sue naturally agreed very quickly. This kind of matter that could leave his mark in the Magicians' Union headquarters and would greatly affect the new flyer. How could he let go of this chance? Chapter 257. Back in the horse carriage from the test site, great magician Camilla had been looking at Sue the entire time with a strange smile on his face. Sue felt uncomfortable being stared at like this and couldn't help saying, "Your Excellency, great magician, what are you smiling at? Didn't you agree that I used this to pass last night? You can't be saying that I cheated now, right? If I felt that you were cheating, I would have exposed you just now." Great magician Camilla shook his head and said, "I just feel that this matter doesn't make sense even now. Why is it that you clearly used simple wind-attributed magic, but with a small magic machine, you were able to create fluctuations of lightning-attributed magic and release lightning-attributed magic? What is even more strange is that the might of this magic is this strong. It even surpasses the limit of your magic control. So I couldn't control it all. So he spread his hands and said, if it wasn't for the magic protection of the exam grounds, the lightning would have scattered in all directions. Perhaps someone would have been hurt. Hurt who? Great magician Camilla gave a laugh. Great magician Camilla gave a laugh. Although your magic is very strong, you didn't control it, and its might was scattered, so its might was not even comparable to a 6th grade spell. Who could you hurt? Then what if I could completely control it? So he couldn't help asking back. Great magician Camilla seriously thought about it, and his expression became serious. If you could completely control it, I'm afraid even I would have to seriously deal with it. After pausing, great magician Camilla reached his hand out to Sue. Let me take a look at that generator. I want to properly study it. Sue, he rolled up his sleeve and revealed the small generators that were tightly wrapped around his arm. He took one of them off and gave it to great magician Camilla. This small generator idea was something that he suddenly thought of when he was thinking of how to solve the problem of the street lamps. On Earth, electricity was a very important part of modern industry. Sue always thought of using magic and the power of magic arrays to make magic machines, imitating the industrial machines on Earth. So when he thought of the street lamps, he kept this thought process. Later, when he realized that it was difficult to solve the problem of street lamps, this idea suddenly flashed through his mind. The electricity on Earth was actually converted from other sources of power. So according to this inference, it was obviously very possible that magic power could be converted into electricity. The first thing that came to his mind was not lightning magic, but a generator. The reason why the generator could be discovered was that the rotating closed coil continuously cut the magnetic flux of the magnetic field to generate magneto-electric current, converting kinetic energy into electrical energy. On Earth, the kinetic energy of the closed coil cutting magnetic field was mainly the heat provided by coal, the impact force provided by water flow, and some wind and nuclear energy. Sui's first thought was wind energy. Therefore, Sui followed the basic structure of the wind energy generator according to the principle of the wind energy generator. After several days of research, he finally made a small wind energy generator. When Hannes brought Kennard, Sophia, and Hank Wilson to Banda City to visit him, he was researching this thing. As for how to provide wind energy, Sui thought of using a wind magic array, using the wind energy from the wind magic array to turn the coil to cut the magnetic field. The initial experiment was considered a success. When Sui used the wind magic array to turn the coil, this small wind energy generator actually released electricity. But Sui's research stopped at this step for now. As for how to direct this electricity, how to store it, and how to increase the power output, he didn't have any ideas for now. He wasn't in a rush at first and was planning on slowly researching it when he had time. However, when great magician Camilla told him that he had to demonstrate high-grade magic to pass the high-grade magician exam, he helplessly thought of this method. In fact, although he hadn't really mastered any high-grade magic, as a mage, when his magic power increased to the level of 7th-tier mage, he naturally had some corresponding research on high-grade magic. And just as he said, he was especially proficient in wind magic, which was why he paid more attention to lightning magic. When he was experimenting with the small wind energy generator, Sui was surprised to find that the electricity released by the generator was very similar to the lightning elemental magic described in the lightning magic array. So he tried to use the lightning elemental magic array to control this electricity. The result was shocking. He could actually use magic to control this electricity. This allowed Sui to immediately understand. The so-called lightning elemental magic array was actually the electrical charge in space. According to the theory of lightning magic, magicians using magic to affect lightning elemental magic array was using magic to forcefully affect space, creating electrical charge to control, creating lightning magic. For Sui's conjecture, there was a very strong proof. It was that when there was thunder and rain, magicians who were good at lightning magic would be very strong. So when Sui was considering the problem of demonstrating high-grade magic, he thought of the experiment he had done before. Yesterday afternoon, he had mentioned this idea to great magician Camilla and Steele. Although great magician Camilla and Steele didn't understand his idea and didn't dare believe it, when they saw Sue use a small wind energy generator to create lightning elemental magic array and use magic to control it, the two of them were shocked. However, they had no choice but to admit that this was indeed a good method of deceiving everyone. Of course, a single small wind energy generator didn't produce much electricity, and there wasn't enough lightning elemental magic array. Even if he used lightning magic, it would attract suspicion because it wasn't strong enough. So to be safe, Sue had Manager Ram buy a bunch of materials to make small wind energy generators. With the help of great magician Camilla and Steele, he made 20 small wind energy generators. Then he wrapped them around his arms and created 2 wind energy generators. When he was demonstrating the high-grade magic, Sue had directly injected magic into the 20 small wind energy generators. He activated the wind magic array inside and made the 20 small wind energy generators produce electricity at the same time, instantly creating a large amount of lightning elemental magic array. As for the following matter, it was much simpler. Although Sue Yi's magic couldn't control this large amount of lightning elemental magic array, it wasn't a problem for him to guide it. He only needed to use all his magic and control the lightning elemental magic array to release it according to the basic principles of lightning magic. Facts proved that the effects of this were very good. After the emergency training under the guidance of great magician Camilla yesterday, Sue had used the lightning spell at the high-grade magic demonstration. Just the might of the lightning spell had shocked everyone and easily passed the test. But even if he personally saw Sue use the small wind energy generator to generate electricity, great magician Camilla still couldn't understand the principle behind it. Taking the small wind energy generator from Sue, great magician Camilla looked it over in his hand a few times. His magic slightly moved, and the wind magic array inside the small wind energy generator was activated. The coil began to quickly turn and let out a buzzing sound. In the blink of an eye, there were traces of electricity being generated. Great magician Camilla thought for a bit before moving his magic again. There were small bolts of lightning that appeared in his hand, looking very beautiful. So, how did you think of this thing? This is too amazing. It has completely subverted my understanding of magic. After stopping moving his magic, great magician Camilla looked at the small wind energy generator in his hand and couldn't help asking this to Sue. Sue looked at great magician Camilla and then looked at the small wind energy generator in his hand. He thought that if the people of Earth knew that the magicians of the signs could directly control electricity and generate electricity, their worldview would be destroyed. It had to be known which child on Earth wasn't taught that they couldn't touch this and that they couldn't touch that. People being electrocuted to death was common knowledge on Earth. In this world, not only could powerful magicians not be electrocuted to death, they could even control lightning. This also subverted common knowledge on Earth. For example, Sue had never thought that he could control the electricity generated by the wind energy generator and even use it as a weapon. Thinking about it, Sue found that it was impossible to completely explain the principles of the wind energy generator to great magician Camilla. Moreover, he didn't know how he knew the principles, so he could only vaguely reply, "This is something I discovered when I was bored doing magic machine experiments. If you ask me the specific principles, I'm not too clear on it." Great magician Camilla didn't think too much about it and just nodded. He looked at the small wind energy generator in his hand and put it in his pocket without any politeness. "Let me study this thing a bit." Sue, of course, could only nod in response. But after looking at great magician Camilla, Sue suddenly thought of an even stranger problem. According to the theories of the signs, for a powerful magician like great magician Camilla, he could easily use large-scale lightning spells. Magicians with high proficiency in lightning spells could even use forbidden-level lightning spells, which was lightning that could compare to nature. But if these powerful magicians were to use their magic to control the stable output of lightning elemental magic, wouldn't they be able to become a generator themselves? Thinking of this, Sue-E couldn't help thinking of scene. On a dark night, there was a power outage in the house for some unknown reason. Steele loudly shouted upstairs, "Grandfather, there's a power outage. Can you generate some electricity?" Then the respected and honorable great magician Camilla gave a sound of acknowledgement. His magic was fully activated and electricity flowed through his body. In the blink of an eye, the various electrical appliances in the house lit up again. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.